wszystko tam działa. Halo, halo YouTube, czy również nas potencjalnie widzicie i słyszycie? Siemanko, za 2 minuty rozpoczyna się oficjalnie transmisja Path of Exile 3.27 Keepers of the Flame. Właśnie niezależnie na jakiej platformie oglądacie. Au! Oczywiście skiny są do zdobycia obecnie tylko poprzez Twitcha. Natomiast no, zawsze każdy może oglądać tam, gdzie mu wygodnie, czyż nie? Wspaniale. Czy ja mam jakieś opóźnienie? Nie wydaje mi się. Czekaj, tutaj, o. Faktycznie miałem jakieś 5-6 sekund. Już odświeżyłem i... Aha, czekaj, tu coś... Czy mi tylko laguje? To coś? Czekaj, dam tak, auto. Bonjour, chomiku. Cały Twitch laguje, pisze Dayman. Zobaczymy, dałem auto. Czy wlecą starter build na YouTube'a? Jasne, że tak. Zawsze wlatują trochę po patch notesach. Dobra, dobra, dobra. 40 sekund, słuchajcie. 39, 38. Dobra, kto z was wziął sobie już, nie wiem, wolne? Albo kto wziął sobie bezrobocie specjalnie na nową ligę? Matiaw, dziękuję ci ślicznie. Dobra, już wyłączam alerty. Dobra, dobra. L4 wziąłem, jutro idę po urlop. Mnie zwolnili specjalnie na tą ligę. No i szacun. Dobrze. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hi!
Jonathan Rogers from Grinding Gear Games, and welcome to GGG Live.
Welcome, Jonathan.
Today we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of Path of Exile, Keepers of the Flame, which is coming out 1 week from now on October the 31st. Twitch drops are enabled on
Są
today's
dropy
live
tutaj.
stream, so you'll be able to
Głośniej.
claim your Hive-born crawler pet by following the instructions below.
Podgłaśniam.
Without further ado, let's roll the trailer for Path of Exile, Keepers of the Flame.
Podgłaśniam, spokojnie.
We, the Keepers of the Flame, serve the
Jeszcze?
will of the Dreamer. His instructions whispered from beyond the wall of sleep. But now, the Hiveborn are here, on Rayclast, and they seek to poison our world.
Okej, jakaś wielka łapa. Jak klasyczny bridge, tylko...
We must close their breaches, destroy their hives, slay their breach lords.
Ej, tak jak mówiłem, łączą chyba bridge'a z Beyondem. Muzyka jak z Duma, no.
And by his gifts, the
Oh!
Dreamer provides.
What? Nowe drzewko?
They brought this war to our world,
Mamy to!
but we shall end it, whatever it takes.
Genesis Tree. Nowe skille. Tak! 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 Nowe klasy! Na to czy... Tak dużo rzeczy z mojego bingo się sprawdziło. Nowe ascendancies, złączony bridge i beyond. A miałem nosa, słuchajcie. Strasznie dużo moich predykcji się sprawdziło. Dobra. Pokażcie te nowe klasy!
As you can see, this expansion is a true sequel to the Breach League, first introduced to the game in 2016. We felt like it was time to progress the story of Breach, bringing with it a slew of new updates to the base game. In today's stream, we'll take you on a deep dive into
10
Path of Exile,
ascendancji
Keepers of the
nowych.
Flame, beginning with the League mechanic, covering all the fearsome challenges it presents, and the new twisted ways you'll be able to empower your character. After that, we'll dive into the new ascendancy options possible with Bloodline classes. Then we'll cover the much anticipated and synchronous trade system coming to Path of Exile 1. Afterwards, we'll move into the new Uber Pinnacle bosses, how to access them,
Uber bossy.
and some new drops worthy of the added difficulty. Finally, we'll cover some notable quality of life improvements before moving on to our supporter packs
Dobra,
and
poka te
challenge rewards.
klasy.
We'll then have a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile's game directors Mark and myself your questions from Twitch chat.
Dobra, jeszcze podgłośnie.
And after the live stream, we'll drop the full patch notes at 11 a.m. New Zealand time or 3 p.m. Pacific. So let's get started. I'll hand things over to Mark to introduce the new league.
Witaj, Mark Roberts.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile. Breach is a beloved league that has had an iconic history in PoE.
No, Brish ma z 10
We
lat
intend
już.
to honor that legacy with our first ever sequel league, Keepers of the Flame. This develops every aspect of Breach, adding new layers to discover. Richer lore, scarier bosses, and entirely new mechanics. That said, this is still Breach, so you will still be opening breaches and slaying hordes of otherworldly monsters.
Kocham kręcić się w kółko.
Breach Lords have found the means to stabilize the connection between their realm and Rayclast. Now, with their grip tightening, we learn their true goal in our world: conquest. The threat they pose has now escalated to home soil. On the coast in Act 1, you'll encounter Aelith, the founder of the Keepers of the Flame.
Nowa
This is a
koleżanka.
monastic order sworn to defend Rayclast from the Breach Lords. The
Ty, to
exit to
mnisi
the
z
Mudflats
PoE
has
2.
been barricaded by Hiveborn, breach monsters that are working to claim every inch of Rayclast. Aelith can grant you a small spark of the power of the Flame, allowing you to blast away their barricade and move onwards. Once you enter the Mudflats, you'll find it infested with breach monsters. They appear to be constructing a kind of hive, creating strange shapes and structures that absolutely don't belong. Time to purge them with fire.
Taki scorch trochę.
Aelith needs you to protect her as she empowers the flame to do so. Hold off the assault long enough, and she'll be able to demolish the hive with cleansing flame. In other areas, the gap between worlds is strained. Here, you'll find a more familiar encounter with a new twist. A massive breach hand sunders the space between dimensions, and touching it will open an unstable breach, causing monsters to flood in.
Density wygląda bardzo fajnie.
If you can slaughter them quickly enough, you can stabilize the breach.
Taki bardziej klasyczny bridge.
This brazen action can draw the attention of Vroon, Marshal of Zesht, who will do everything it can to stop you. Defeating this boss will permanently seal the breach, severing another connection between the Breach Lord's world and Rayclast. These stabilized breaches are similar to what a breach once was, but with upgraded monsters, a success condition to shoot for, UI tracking to keep the player informed of their progress through the encounter, and satisfying feedback when you do manage to complete the encounter.
O, nowe rzeczy na
We've
podłodze.
taken all the
Womb
lessons
gifts.
we've learned since the release of Breach 9 years ago and improved upon it in every way we can. However, much of the joy of Breach came from its simplicity. While we want to modernize the mechanic, we don't want to undermine the core experience. You're still mostly just slaughtering hordes of enemies in a circle.
Czyli mówią, że
Finally,
mechanika dalej będzie
in
prosta.
in-game areas you might run into breach constructions that have been left unopposed for too long and have grown into their full twisted glory. Breach hives. Towering flesh-crafted cities in the sky. These are the visions of the Breach Lords made real in Rayclast, teeming with breach monsters. You must raid and destroy these cities with the help of Aelith and her flame.
Bridge depsy.
In some of these hives, you may even encounter some of the Breach Lords themselves,
I
who will
walicie się
not be happy you're intruding on their planned conquest.
na arenie Kseszta.
Now, let's talk loot. Of course, being an exile is hard work, and you're unlikely to help entirely out of the goodness of your heart. Fortunately, Aelith has power and rewards aplenty, born of the Breach Realm itself, to offer you for your assistance. Help her, and she'll bring you to the Monastery of the Keepers, the hallowed halls of her order. Here, you'll find the Genesis Tree. the growing heart of the Keeper's power.
Ty właśnie, co z tym drzewkiem?
On
Poka.
interacting with it, you'll find that this tree has a tree. That's right. It couldn't be Path of Exile unless the tree also had a tree. More importantly, the Genesis tree is an engine of unholy creation, and a profitable one. As you complete breach encounters and work more with Aelith, you'll be able to grow the Genesis tree larger and larger, sprouting additional limbs. Each of these limbs, you'll notice, has their own inventories.
What?
These can be used for an unusual method of crafting new items.
Nowy crafting,
With
Poka.
this system, you'll be able to grow currency, uniques, equipment, and a new kind of otherworldly item, grafts. Grafts are breach hands grown directly from the Genesis tree.
Ale
Born
zajebiste.
of the same flesh and sinew as the invading monsters.
Nowy skin na ręce.
These fuse
Znaczy skin.
directly to your
Slot.
body in a completely safe process. Don't worry about it. With grafts, you can harness the power of the breach. Some provide passive benefits like this
Oho.
or this,
Dance in
but
the White.
they can also grant a wide selection of powerful skills.
Ciekawe, czy pokażą, co to za skille.
These graft skills can provide a flexible way to fill gaps in your build, offering everything from damage to potent defensive buffs and crowd control. For example, the Battering All graft will call massive arms to erupt from the earth, stunning all those they hit.
Masz skill Kseszta jako
For some
swój skill.
additional pack clearing power, you could consider the Squalling Tool graft. When commanded, this graft will cast Dance in the White, creating a deadly ice tornado which aggressively seeks enemies and fires off bursts of ricocheting projectiles when you critically strike with skills. For some further utility and a useful buff, try out the Storming Ash graft.
Causes damage to be
This can be
lucky.
commanded to call down a ring of bolts from the sky
Ale power
that will
creep.
leave behind the new Radiant Ground. Radiant Ground grants a potent damage buff to allies standing within it and makes their hit damage lucky. If you're simply after raw damage, look no further than the Erupting Zoth graft, which causes massive eruptions of fire where you command, which then re-erupt when you warcry. There are a total of 16 different graft types you can grow,
16
each with
nowych,
their own
powiedział.
skill.
16
You
nowych
can
skilli.
even unlock a second graft slot as you progress through Aelith's questline, so feel free to mix and match Flesh Zone horrors to your heart's content. Now, grafts aren't just here to make you stronger, they are also your means of feeding the Genesis tree, which needs constant supplies of graft blood to grow anything useful. You can do this by defeating breach monsters, which will leave behind blood that your graft will automatically collect. When you feed this blood to the tree, your allocated passives will be put to work.
Ciekawe, czy
This
można mieć
section of the
wszystko.
Genesis tree can be used to grow new grafts for you, which the Genesis tree will then birth in a gruesome display.
Aha.
Basic passives on the tree might increase item rarity of birthed grafts, or the chance to birth additional grafts.
Czyli zamiast crafting jest grafting.
These passives can target specific types of grafts, and this passive causes grafts to be birthed with a random amount of quality.
To śmieszne
Quality
całkiem.
improves the amount of blood that can be stored by your grafts. This section of the Genesis tree births currency items. Basic passives can result in more or better currency.
Normalnie z łona
Allocate this
karencji
passive
wyciągam
to
orby.
sometimes cause a shower of currency to burst forth from the flesh of the tree. Yeah, it's a bit gross, but working with the organic matter of a bunch of dead otherworldly creatures was never going to be a clean
Nowe
affair.
karencje, nie wiem czy widzieliście. Unstable Implant.
Grafts themselves are born of a different world,
Jakiś-
so are unmodifiable by most currencies.
Nowe
However,
karencji.
with this passive, the Genesis tree can occasionally grow fleshy mockeries of currency orbs. These function like augmentation orbs, regal orbs, or exalted orbs, but they work on your grafts instead of normal gear.
Aha.
Yep, it's graft crafting.
Czyli normalne orby, ale
Allocating
typowo
this
dla
passive can result in foulborn currencies.
tych nowych itemów.
This foulborn exalted orb, for instance, behaves as a normal exalted orb, except it guarantees a higher tier modifier.
O.
By locking out a large portion of the lower rolls, a normal exalted orb would be able to hit.
Czyli coś w stylu tierowanych
The
exaltów
largest
z
section of the
P2.
Genesis tree is used to grow rare equipment items. For these, you have a lot of agency to influence the type and modifiers on your grown item. For example, you can specifically target boots with a dexterity requirement, with an increased chance for speed modifiers, and reduced chance for cold modifiers. Or maybe you'd prefer to look for a two-handed axe with increased chance for physical modifiers.
To bardzo mi przypomina
This section of the tree is for growing unique
te
items.
trumny.
Similar to the
Tylko
equipment
prostsze.
section, there are passives that let you target growing specific types of uniques or rarer uniques. The process of growth is not always a perfect one, however, and can result in some defects.
Defekty, poka.
This passive can result in birthed uniques becoming foulborn, which mutates one of the existing modifiers on the item into a new one,
What?
resulting in some interesting new ways to use that unique.
Zmodyfikowane
For
unikaty.
example, this foulborn quill rain no longer has increased projectile speed, but instead has increased area of effect.
Dobra, to będą tak broken
Another
itemy
foulborn
niektóre.
quill rain could replace the mana gained on hit
Przecież
with
to-
the much more powerful modifier where insufficient mana doesn't prevent your bow attacks.
Wyobraźcie sobie, że usuwa less damage na
Here
quill
are some
rainie
other
przykładowo.
examples. This passive even gives a rare chance for foulborn uniques to have multiple different modifiers mutated. I'm sure you'll come up with some extremely powerful uses for these.
To będzie tak
We'll
broken.
leave it up to you to discover what this mysterious part of the Genesis tree can grow.
To będzie taka gamba.
So, ultimately, you'll be slaying masses of breach monsters, harvesting blood with the aid of your grafts, feeding that to the Genesis tree, growing some items and better grafts, and back again to the slaughter. As with all our challenge leagues, this league will come with a set of 40 challenges to pursue, and completing them will award you with the Keeper of the Flame armor set, allowing you to truly embrace becoming a monk and worshipping the Dreamer. Now, graph skills won't be the only new tools to play with. In 327, we're also adding a collection of new skill and support gems. Let's go over them now.
Nowe skillki.
Kinetic Rain is a new wand attack, which covers the ground in unstable kinetic energy.
No bitrate wariuje.
These hazards collapse at the slightest touch,
A co to zostaje na
releasing their
podłodze?
energies into any unfortunate soul who happens to be standing on them. With enough projectiles and area of effect, an enterprising exile could carpet the world in dangerous kinetic force.
Ciekawe, czy możesz shotgunować, overlapować
Wall of
damage.
Force creates a barrier of kinetic power, causing allied projectiles to ricochet towards targets automatically. Drop one behind a boss, and redirect the bolts of your armies. I'm sure you'll find ways to break this one. Conflagration is a new bow attack, which rains down fiery bolts from above that stick into the ground and pulse as you approach. Once you get close enough, these bolts detonate, causing ravaging ignites. These bolts chain react, allowing you to create fields of incendiary destruction.
Wygląda git, ale ten lightningowy mi się najbardziej podoba na
Thunderstorm
razie.
is a bow attack, which creates a whirling storm
Oh!
of wind and lightning where it lands. While you're within the storm, it will rapidly grow.
To wygląda
until it
zajebiście na
becomes
clear.
violently thunderous with lightning-infused clouds.
Fajne, jak
At
Twister
this
w
point,
SWE 2 trochę.
leaving the storm will cause it to detonate, dealing
Bitrate.
damage to everything within and releasing a flurry of tornadoes in all
Dla
directions.
takiego breacha, taki spark bołowy trochę, no.
Attacking with kinetic fusillade will create hovering orbs of energy. These linger for a few moments above you before zipping off to nearby targets.
A to jest dosłownie
chaining
Fusillade
between
dwójki.
them, then detonating. Living lightning support will bring to life living sparks of energy, elemental minions that zap through packs of enemies with speed and ease. Use these alongside your spellcasting to augment your pack clearing abilities, or find whatever means possible to cover the world in living sparks of ruin.
To też z dwójki przeniesiony. No i spoko.
Windburst support unleashes chaotic tornadoes as you attack, which ricochet around wildly and quickly. These deal moderate damage as they travel, but will explode into a highly damaging burst when they expire.
Czekaj, dobrze, to jest
So
rework
it's a
Tornado
choice
Shota?
between scaling their duration up to get better coverage,
Chyba tak.
or down to access the burst more quickly. Kinetic Instability is a support gem to go along with the new wand attacks that causes enemies slain to leave behind those same orbs of shimmering energy that Kinetic Rain creates. One might ponder just how many orbs you can create if you were to use both. In 327, Exiles will be
Na to
able to
czekałem.
absorb the power of some of the bosses they defeat.
10 klas nowych jakichś.
These take the form of new Ascendancy class options, called Bloodlines. Bloodline classes are a new means of character customization in the endgame. They are secondary ascendancy classes that are unlocked by defeating specific endgame bosses.
O!
They are allocated with your normal
dopiero
ascendancy
na
points,
endgame.
and you'll have to choose how many of your points go into the original ascendancy and how many into your bloodline class. This means there is a nigh limitless ability to mix and match here, as you could choose to invest just a couple points into your bloodline, or max it out. And you could take any bloodline with any base ascendancy class that you see fit.
Ciekawe.
To unlock your bloodline, hunt down the endgame boss whose power you desire and defeat them. Or have a friend help and claim the power for your own.
Pokaż trochę.
There are 10 bloodline classes to discover. Bosses who offer this power are typically associated with past leagues,
Czyli za
giving
aula będzie na
additional reasons
przykład
to engage with that league
w Delwie.
content. Let's run over a few examples. The Chaos Bloodline will be offered to you by the Trial Master, if you manage to succeed his final challenge. With his blessing, you can greatly augment your Vow skills in different ways. Priest of Yalmak lets you use Vow skills much more often, while Priest of Kopek makes it harder to build up Vow skills, but makes them far more powerful. Or take Corruption's Embrace, which grants more Vow Keystone powers the more corrupted items you have equipped.
Full corrupted
The
build.
Ashabi bloodline can be gained by, you guessed it, defeating Ashabi. Her abilities are drawn from the 3 types of life force that manifest within as Marian spirits. The Wild Bear rewards you with adrenaline for generating rage.
Berserker.
The Vivid Cat gives your elusive buffs a chance to refresh, as well as making you more stealthy while elusive. The Primal Owl allows your unleashed spells to reoccur many additional times, and get stronger for each time they reoccur. The Nameless bloodline comes from the King in the Mists. Be forewarned, his menacing power comes at a great cost.
O, te pewnie z
With the
downside'em
Unseen
będą.
Hand, you can equip a third
Ale
ring,
jaja.
but you'll have to
A,
decide if that comes
potężne.
at the expense of having no amulet, no belt,
Aha!
or no flasks.
Okej, dobra,
Unlike
popieprzone.
Silhouette adds a hefty life cost to all your spells.
To downside jest ogromny.
But they deal additional chaos damage based on the amount of life spent. Of course, there is more to come. What powers might you glean from delving deep underneath Rayclass to fight all the Crystal King? What secrets can you learn from Lycia, Herald of the Scourge, waiting at the end of the Forbidden Sanctum? As you can imagine, there are countless possible combinations with the system. You could be a Slayer that embraces corruption and vile power, or perhaps you'll play an occultist that doubles down on their dark power
Widać jakieś
by
nowe
integrating
itemy?
the Nameless bloodline.
Chyba nie.
We are excited to see what crazy and interesting builds players come up with. In the most recent Path of Exile 2 expansion, the Third Edict, we introduced a much anticipated feature, fully asynchronous trade. It was a fantastic success.
Chyba się
So
spodziewaliśmy.
now we're excited to announce that we'll also be adding this feature into Path of Exile 1.
Czyli
When
usprawnienia
you reach
handlu.
Act 6, you'll be able to find Faustus in Lion Eye's watch. Previously, he just operated the currency exchange. Now, he will also act as a steward for your merchants tabs. These are where you can place items for sale, for direct and instant purchase
No
by
dobry
other
jest ten
players,
system.
even when you're not online.
Dużo
To
mniej
list an
pitolenia się z
item,
ludźmi.
simply place it in the tab and select a currency and an amount.
Ale tanio, Nimis. Czyżby sugestia, że znerfione? Nie widziałem, czy był
Once
podświetlony.
listed, other players will be able to find the item by searching for it via the trade website
Nie,
with
chyba
a
nie.
new in-game market search. To purchase something for yourself, it's as easy as hitting this button, which will teleport you to the seller's hideout, where you can view their merchants tabs, buy the item, and also view the rest of their wares in case something else catches your eye. Every purchase costs a small fee of gold, as Faustus takes his cut. To account for this further drain on gold, acquisition and cost balance elsewhere in the game has been adjusted. Anything you've managed to sell successfully will have your profits collected here, in a separate tab to claim at your leisure. To be clear, previous means of trading, such as via pre-existing premium stash tabs and the website, will still function just as before.
Czy można handlować tak?
Merchants tabs
Stary i nowy
and the
sposób.
asynchronous trading that comes with them are an entirely additive feature on top of the already existing methods to trade. You might find yourself needing the trade system to buy some upgrades.
Czyżby
Because
inkarnacje?
this update also introduces 3 new Uber Pinnacle boss fights.
Incarnations pewnie, nie?
These encounters are manifested from the memories of Zana, and in her long torment, they have festered into something truly deadly.
Pokaż co robią.
These fights offer an imposing challenge, alongside powerful rewards. In order to gain access, similar to existing Uber Pinnacle fights, you'll need to discover fragments dropped by Tier 17 map bosses. Each attempt at the new Uber Pinnacle fights will require 5 of these.
Usuńcie Tier
Let's dig into
17!
some of the challenges you'll need to face in these new Uber versions.
Taka
In the
łyżka
original
dziegciu
incarnation of
w słodkim
Neglect
miodziku.
fight, the statues can be used to block the laser beams to hide behind, giving you an opportunity to avoid being shocked, frozen, or killed. When you run near these statues, they activate and allow you to reposition them. While activated, they will not stop the lasers, meaning you want to position them well, then avoid them. However, in the Uber version of this fight, instead of being a safe haven, the statues will refract the laser beams, causing a ruckus of energy to cover the arena. Activating them will prevent the refraction, so unlike the base fight, where you want to position them well and then avoid them, you'll be wanting to constantly
dostał
keep these
bombę.
statues active. But then, you have to deal with their assault of attacks. While fighting the incarnation of fear, these fiery orbs will slowly clutter up the arena, locking off portions of it until you bait the boss into detonating them himself with his thrown spear. When Uberified, these orbs are attached by a flaming leash to the boss, rotating around him constantly. More and more will spawn as the fight goes on, making it even more imperative that you clean them up by cleverly using the boss's abilities against him.
Możesz dwie naraz, okej.
Normally in the incarnation of Dread fight, during the bullet hell phase, you have to acquire a red rose, run it to the boss, then collect a blue rose, doing the same,
Na tego bossa to
causing it to get
CI
heavy
będzie
stunned
trzeba.
and interrupting its mechanic. In the Uber version, you have to do the same, but in order to get the blue rose, you have to defeat the incarnation of Neglect, and to get the red rose, you have to defeat the incarnation of Fear. Good luck.
Czekaj, co? W trakcie fazy
Given the
bullet
difficulty of
hellowej?
these bosses, their reward should be worth your while. Let's take a look at some. From
Good
the
luck.
Uber incarnation of Neglect fight, we have Bitter Instinct, a spiky shield that turns retaliatory strikes into preemptive ones, making it just a matter of time before the long arm of justice crushes your foes.
A to ciekawe, nie musisz blokować, żeby używać retaliation skilli.
Alternatively, you might find Festering Resentment, a poisoned blade with an unending supply of toxins built into the hilt. These toxins are put to good use, causing every spell you trigger to be capable of poisoning with all
To
damage
na
it deals,
pewno będzie
enabling
grane.
a truly crazy trigger-centric poison ruckus.
Wszystkim poisonujesz.
And from the Uber incarnation of Dread, the Hallowed Monarch, a counterpart to the Dark Monarch, which focuses more heavily on investing into one or a few minions, rather than growing your hordes to massive
Ty,
proportions.
z Reaperem to by było śmieszne.
Storm Rayclast, with your chosen few at your side,
Headhunter
stealing
dla
power
twojego
from your
Reapera.
enemies as you go. We've got a number of quality of life changes to bring to 327 as well. Many of which you may have seen already in some of our pre-livestream teasers, but for those who haven't, Heist is a mechanic which has long frustrated some players who may otherwise have been interested in the
To są
rewards it
quality
has
of
to
life
offer,
zmiany, które już
but have
widzieliśmy.
no desire to grind
Ale powiem
through
wam,
the
co mi
early
chodziło bardzo po głowie, jak pokazywali te nowe klasy.
contracts
Mamy
to
obecnie w
evolve the
PoE
road to the
buildy,
maximum level.
które no,
Well,
bywały silne przez lata, pomimo tego, że ze swojej ascendancji praktycznie miały martwy punkt. Że tak na dobrą sprawę tylko 3 wybory były jakieś tam znaczące w ich ascendancjach. I wydaje mi się, że te buildy dostaną bardzo dużego buffa przez te Bloodline klasy. To są generalnie rzeczy, które już pokazywali, nie? Takie jak właśnie refundowanie punktów na atlasie za golda, uproszczony heist.
Which of course can now also be done with your regular passive tree as well. Now you can make all your decisions with no regrets. Well, maybe some regrets. You no longer need to purchase bestiary orbs. You can now itemize beasts for free directly from your bestiary. From late Act 1, you can now mass identify your items at an NPC in every town. And from Helena in your hideout.
Co będzie uproszczone w hejście? Nie będziesz musiał levelować ludków od hejsta, od razu będą zlevelowani.
While using an alteration orb, you can now hold Alt to swap to using an augmentation orb, if one is available. Opening a blight chest will now open all other blight chests near it. Rogue's disenchanting services can now be accessed from towns and hideouts. Kerak missions now have a handy icon to show at a glance what kind of mission they are. Holding down Control and right-clicking on stacked decks will now continuously open them to your inventory, notifying you in chat what the outcome is.
Jak ktoś gra na
If
przykład
you still
Legiony,
want to
to się
open them
bardzo
direct
cieszę.
to the ground, to let your loot filter provide a dose of dopamine, you can still do that too by also holding Shift. Val orbs can be used on monsters encased in essences, to the same effect that remnants of corruption have. When multiple skill gems are ready to level at the same time, you'll now be able to click this button to level them all up at once.
Levelowanie wszystkich gemów jest super. Jak masz na
Next
przykład
up, we're going to be talking about our new League supporter
Maloni
packs.
Quiver w endgame'ie.
Today, we're launching two new series of supporter packs.
Skiny! Wow!
The Champion of Theopolis and the Verdant Magus packs.
Okej,
Each
animacja
tier
level upa.
contains the pack's full face value in points, alongside several exclusive microtransactions. As always, the microtransactions in these
Boże.
packs are purely cosmetic and do not
Ten mi
affect
się
your
nie
character's
podoba.
power or progression in any way. The Champion of Theopolis series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive
Czemu on dyma
microtransactions.
byka?
Manifest a champion's ferocity, as the Lion's Might unique finisher effect rips your enemies to shreds. Open the Champion of Theopolis portal to end your crusade through maps in the style expected of a true victor of the arena. Defeat your enemies like a true gladiator, wearing the
Skinek
Grand
spoko.
Champion of Theopolis armor set.
Ja to lubię takie
The armor
prostsze skiny.
awarded only to the most elite warriors of the Grand
No
Arena.
jest taki okej. Wolę te skiny bez jakichś
Take
skrzydeł na
charge
pół
of the
ekranu.
situation and storm into combat with the Flaming Minotaur's Quicksilver Flask effect.
The Champion's Podium map device rises up to honor the glory you've achieved as you activate it.
Ascend the stairs and stand atop the platform as you enter your maps. Each flame surrounding the platform represents a remaining use
Map
on your
device to
portal.
jest spoko.
The burden-back billy goat carries all the supplies necessary for a campsite as he travels behind you in battle.
Czekaj, co?
When placed in a hideout, instead of roaming around like your other pets, their supplies are deployed, creating a small camp where you can access your
Aha!
stash and providing a place to take a load off while you rest next to the campfire.
To jest jednocześnie skin do peta.
The Verdant
skin do
Magus
Stasza
series
naraz.
contains 6
Tak
exclusive
jakby.
microtransactions.
A to śmieszne całkiem.
Having
Gocik.
Faustus sell your items on your behalf is great and all, but sometimes you just want to feel a little bit more shady about your dealings. The back alley trader hideout decoration is more secretive with your trades, creating distance between you and your customers.
Note
Dobra.
that until 327 is released, this back alley trader will only serve as your currency
A
exchange.
to na trade'a
Once
fajne.
it's out, it will be updated to have the new managed shop
Skin
option
do
to also
sklepiku.
facilitate your trades.
The Verdant Wayfinder pet is a loyal companion to any Master Magus. As you approach waypoints, it envelops them with its vines, guiding you throughout Rayclast.
Okej.
Control Earth and nature itself, as the Great Verdant Magus armor set envelops you in the ancient
Kapelusz
power
fajny.
now lost to time. There's also a matching back
Ej,
attachment
ładny ten
included.
skin. Dobra, ten skin zajebisty. Ja lubię takie łachmaniarz taki.
Remnants of the forest ripple out from within you with the Verdant Magus level up effect equipped, restoring life to the corrupted land. Call on an ancient golem to use their power to create a safe passage for you to retreat through with the Arcane Golem portal.
Portal też raczej na plus.
As a Supreme Verdant
Oh.
Magus, you can travel to your Arcane Isle hideout. A cluster of islands held together by ancient magic passed down between elite mages.
Dobra, hideoucik wygląda zajebiście.
Stand atop your tower and relish the great heights you've reached above those who have not harnessed the arcane.
Dobra.
These
Mój
packs are
nowy
now
hideout.
available for purchase on both PC and console and will remain so during Path of Exile, Keepers of the Flame.
Mam wrażenie, że supporter paki dużo lepsze niż ostatnio.
Any microtransactions from these supporter packs will be made available for use in Path of Exile 2. Meanwhile, the Crypt Keeper and Frisian Magistrate packs leave the store forever at the launch of the Keepers of the Flame League, so now's your last chance to purchase them. Thank you so much for your ongoing support.
Thank you, Mr. Mark.
We're just about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. Afterwards, we'll post the full patch notes for Path of Exile, Keepers of the Flame.
Okej, patch
at
notesy
11
będą.
a.m. New Zealand time, 3 p.m. Pacific.
Powiedział, że będą patch
With
notesy.
release at the end of next week, our community team will be posting crucial information you'll need for the release. Keep an eye on the news. Thanks for joining us today
Thank you.
and checking out our latest developments.
Thank you, thank
We're
you.
looking forward to holding off the Breach Lord's conquest, crafting gruesome grafts, planning dozens of Bloodline-empowered builds, and filling out our tree's tree. We hope you all join us.
Thank you, Mr. Mark Roberciński. Dobra. Pierwsza kwestia, moi drodzy. Jak wrażenia? Bo powiem szczerze, mechanika ligowa, nowy ten grafting, te nowe Bloodline ascendancje, nowe skille, wygląda dużo lepiej niż się spodziewałem. Naprawdę. Ja rozmawiałem o tym wcześniej z wami. Mówiłem, że u mnie hype tak, nie wiem, 6 na 10 był. Teraz taka dziewiąteczka. Luźno. A widzę, że u was podobnie. Że bardzo się podniosła wasza opinia przed revealem, po revealu. No. Czy będzie gdzieś na YouTubie, na kanale Poe ten pokaz? Jasne, Farks. Na pewno będzie. Ale jeśli chodzi o to, co pokazali... O, czekajcie, bo mi się czat nie aktualizował. Bardzo mi się podoba koncept. Zapauzowałeś live'a?
Right? Like, it can be pretty brutal
Oni
on
już
some of
lecą.
the stuff when it's like, you know, every
Dobra,
2 months you
czekajcie.
got a deadline.
Zobaczymy, co tam gadają.
But yeah, I mean, look, we have to do it, right? Like, I mean, that was always the intention, to get, you know, the regular schedule. It's super important.
Okay,
so
dobra.
we have to make it happen. You know, we have to make sure that is something that we can do going forward. But yeah, I would like. I'm honestly, I'm so happy that we managed to, you know, to get everything back, and I think it helps a lot.
Ty patrzcie, światełka sobie fioletowe nawet ogarnęli.
It's like crazy here. This
Right,
this
right.
visit for me, like, and things seem a bit more of a finished state as well from what I've been looking at.
Right.
So
Well, we're putting a lot more effort into sort of getting that production process down, making sure that everything's, you know, going well.
Coś muszę
You know,
zobaczyć.
we're hiring producers at the moment, just by the way, in case anyone's out there is like looking as a
Ej,
professional.
słuchajcie, póki oni się dopiero witają ze sobą, patrzcie, co już znalazłem, że jest stronka Keepers. Zobaczymy, czy tutaj coś jeszcze pokazali. Dzięki, Brędziol. W ogóle nie wiem, czy zwróciliście uwagę, ale to dosłownie jest ten klan mnicha, którym gramy w PoE 2. Ten klan mnichów będzie nam pomagał. Ty, zobaczmy, czy tu coś zlikowali nowego. Skille używane przez ten graft mają jakiegoś większego kryta. Zwiększona szansa na odnajdywanie starożytnych łon. Kurde. To będzie okazja może położyć swoją dłoń, słuchajcie, na jakimś potężnym łonie niedługo. Co Projectiles in Circles. O! Damage cannot be reflected na przykład. Jako modzik. Ej, cały ten koncept do craftowywania sobie foul modów specjalnych na unikatach, powiem wam, dlaczego jest totalnie popierdzielony. Są przecież unikaty, które mają negatywne linijki. Więc masz teoretycznie, jak dobrze rozumiem, szansę, że trafi ci się item, który jest bardzo potężnym unikatem z negatywną linijką i że tą negatywną linijkę podmieni na jakąś OP linijkę. I jeśli to działa tak, jak rozumiem, to będą najbardziej broken itemy w grze kiedykolwiek. Skała ma brak slotów? Na przykład, Skała ma brak slotów.
aka Keepers of the Flame. It's the first real direct sequel league in PoE. Now I know we're kind of sequeling with stuff in PoE 2.
Nowe skille tu są.
Follow-ups there, but this is the actual first
Conflagration,
sequel league.
to z tymi strzałami wybuchającymi.
People are pretty keen on it.
Może, Rakel, może będą ograniczone opcje.
So far, first impressions. What do you
Trochę to przypomina system legendary potencjału z Last Epocha, tylko legendary potencjał z Last Epochu to tylko dodajesz i dodajesz do tego w sposób semideterministyczny. A tutaj po pierwsze tu jest dużo większa losowość, a po drugie nie dodajesz, tylko zamieniasz. Czy będzie filmik podsumowujący pokaz na YouTubie? Oczywiście, że tak. Oczywiście, że tak. Ty, zobaczmy, czy tu pokażą jeszcze jakieś nowe asynancje. To jest pod spelki, więcej unleashów. Dobra, a możemy zobaczyć, co na przykład ta ascendancja walowa będzie miała. Dzięki, Pejo. Na przykład, jeśli masz 8 unikatowych przedmiotów, to masz co? Regeneracja HP daje ci krwawą barierę, która równa się 30% twojego max life'a. Przykładowo, okej, czyli możesz mieć HP powyżej 100%, tak na dobrą sprawę. Uber inkarnację. O, ty, patrzcie, pokazali pierścień z Uber inkarnacji. Hits with prismatic skills always sap. Increase effect of ailments. Jeśli jest zawsze sap, to słuchajcie, moja teoria jest taka, że to jest pewnie kwestia... Nie wiemy tego. Ale jeśli jest sap, to pewnie jest spora szansa, że będziesz rolował, że ci będzie mogło dropić z różnymi. I na przykład Always Brittle, na przykład, już wygląda dużo lepiej. Pikongs plus 1 ringiem, bez utility flasek. Może? Nie wiem. Może? To jaki pierścień jest tego warty? Complete the challenges. No właśnie, czekaj, co jest z tym Unleashem? Jaki ten Unleash potencjalnie mocno zboostowany? Jeszcze raz. Unleash spells gain more damage each time their effect reoccur. Skills supported by Unleash have plus 3 maximum number of seals. No, żebyś miał bardzo mało klikania takiego Blade Vortexa potencjalnie. Oni nawet pokazywali w tym pokazie Blade Vortexa. Kinetic Rain. Dzięki, Zoroczko. Ty, pa jaki dziadyga. Siedzi na takiej łapie. Przez chwilę się zastanawiałem, czy to jest boss, czy gracz. Chyba boss jednak. Takiego skina nie mamy. Nie, kalendar touch na pewno tylko jeden będzie kopiował. Ty, nowy Jewel! Ty, tego chyba nie pokazali w trakcie pokazu, nie? Czekaj. Fallborn, Red Dream, Crimson Jewel. Pasywki obok, które dają Fire Resa. A, czekaj, nie. To jest po prostu sfallbornowana wersja Jewela istniejącego. To Red Dream. To jest jego fallbornowa wersja. Pasywki dające ci Fire Resa albo All Res, zamiast tego dają ci Max Life'a. Ty! To bardzo dużo życia będzie można z tego dupnąć. Bardzo dużo. A nie, to nawet jeszcze jest lepsze. To nie jest zamiast, tylko also. To jest jeszcze lepsze. To jest bardzo dużo. Wow.
I certainly wouldn't want people to say, oh yeah, we're just going to do sequels from now on, though. We definitely not. Like, I don't think it's going to be the most common thing. I think it's just a thing we...
Okej, zobaczmy, co te gem gadają. Powiem wam tylko w tle, co usłyszałem, że to nie jest tak, że teraz będą po prostu walić sequele lig, tylko bardzo chcieli tą konkretną ligę zreworkować od dawna, bo Bridge jest kultowy, a ma już z 10 lat.
Touched on some stuff that was maybe only scratching the surface.
Part of what allows us to do the sequel here, by the way, and from a more production point of view, is that because we did the Twisted Domain and the new Breach monsters in PoE 2. We got to utilize the monsters. So we didn't take the bosses from PoE 2. We made full from scratch boss fights for this for Keepers of the Flame. But for
czyli biorą asety i dużo artów z PoE 2 i reskinują je w PoE 1. Ale bossy, które dodają, będą całkowicie nowe, z tego co mówi.
So like there's a kind of like two birds, one stone going on there where we not only got to do it, we got to do it in a more cost-effective way that allowed us to focus on other features that are going in the expansion. So, win-win for players and for us in that regard. But it would be less trivial with other sequels or to other leagues where we don't necessarily have all the monsters and everything made like that. So, not to say it's impossible, but it's just an interesting fact.
Ja mam grać HC? Czemu nie? Idealna liga na HC będzie.
If we don't forward think enough or forward plan enough, and I mean quite far in advance, because like making these full monsters from scratch is not a short-term process. We might not be able to do for some other leagues. So,
Ty, a widzicie, co tu jest w tle? Arcik jednej z ascendancji PoE 2, której jeszcze nie mamy. Zauważyliście za nimi?
Lore warning, but I'll try and keep it as oversimplified as possible because I definitely have delved into the deep end of the lore of this stuff. But so to simplify it, PoE 1, Chayula, baddie, we fight them. They're like the pinnacle boss from the first game, and yet in PoE 2 they're like explicitly not there as part of the boss of that. And also there's lore kind of exploring humanity at some point. So I'm curious if this expansion is kind of filling out the story in the in-between here, maybe explaining some of the stuff.
It 100% is. That was a huge other win we got to do here, because really there was like, okay, there's the breaches in PoE 1, previous to Keepers of the Flame, and then there's kind of breaches in PoE 2 with the Twisted Domain, and it's like, wait, how did we get here? What happened? Okay, so there's 25 years. It's what's going on here? So we wanted to, given again, because 9 years ago we weren't really putting that much into the narrative of leagues and into you'd find back then we're not far from Onslaught League back then, right? It was just 20% of
No właśnie, przypominam, że jakieś 10 lat temu ligi w PoE wyglądały tak. Cześć, zalogujcie się na nową ligę. Mechanika ligowa polega na tym, że potwory są 20% szybsze. Bawcie się dobrze. Przebyliśmy długą drogę.
Obviously there's uniques and flavor texts historically, but
nie, to jest ewidentnie łucznik tam po lewej. Nowa ascendancja łucznika jakaś.
Meanwhile also, progressing the narrative towards what if people are playing PoE 2C. Now that being said, if you just play PoE 2, you don't need to know all of this. If you just play PoE 1, good on you. You now know it all. It's all entirely optional information to know, but you kind of have this worth noting, on the kind of Chiola arc, there's a bit of like, is he good, is he bad kind of thing going on. Still to be determined, at least for the players.
I've got a cult following, but that doesn't
Dowiemy się, czy Chayula jest dobry, czy zły.
He was a baddie here, you're an acolyte of Chiola over there.
Yeah.
What goes on in between?
I was reading the flavor text of the acolyte of Chiola this morning, and I'm like, even that doesn't really kind of suggests that maybe it's not a good idea to be following them, but but there's power.
But the monastery of the Keepers of the Flame is actually where the monk trained and from PoE 2 grew up and all of that stuff, so kind of little fun bits there. People playing both games will appreciate it. It's still great, it's going to be great in either game, and it allows us to develop, so because look, they're both set in Ray class, it's still a shared narrative, and it's nice to be able to evolve all of that, and it's honestly been fun, really, honestly, doing all of that.
It's cool to expand kind of some of the story of the ascendancies there as well, you're getting a bit more of a tie in there as well, but You said the monks trained there, though. I thought you were just telling me earlier that the monks trained here in the studio. What's
A jakie są wasze właśnie wrażenia na te Bloodline z ascendancje? Trochę to jest... Kurde, no trochę ewidentnie to testowali w PoE2 ostatnio. Tym, że dodali tą specjalną abyssal liczkę. To jest o tyle ciekawe, że to trochę wymusi na graczach niektórych robienie mechanik, do których nie czujesz się pewnie. Przykładowo bardzo chcesz do swojego buildu ascendancję delwową z aula, no to wybacz, musisz zjeżdżać wózeczkiem do delwa, poszukać. Powodzenia.
Doing all the animation, acting out. They're often not actually mocapping technically with like you know all the suit and everything, but they're often filming that and then doing animation to it. So it's pretty common.
I'd say one of the most useful pieces of technology that we've been able to benefit from is it's a literally single phone shot mocap and very quick from recording to in-game animation. It works really well for animating obviously humans, but also for when it's involving just a single human. It's like ultra quick. Like if you have two and they have to interact and make contact, it's not very good at handling that. But it's been insanely fast. So you just get a single small tripod with a phone, and you can record a human and chuck it in game pretty rapidly. So that's been amazing, and honestly, almost all of the human animations you'll now see in game, where it's not someone punching or hitting another person. So like, it's not, you know, the best for combat and kind of scripted cinematic interactions between characters, but just those kind of freestanding town idols and all of that stuff, yeah, you can do pretty rapidly now.
Jak będą działać te ascendancje, to będziesz miał, na przykład, będziesz mógł mieć swoją ascendancję bazową i tą bloodline'ową. I to, bo to nie każdy może zrozumiał z tymi ascendancjami. Masz generalnie do zdobycia 8 ascendancji pointsów i będziesz mógł je rozdzielić pomiędzy swoją ascendancję i tamtą. Czyli będziesz mógł na przykład dać 4 punkty w asasyna i 4 punkty w, powiedzmy, oszabi. Czyli to nie jest taki jednoznaczny buff, tylko musisz poświęcić trochę mocy, żeby zdobyć trochę mocy.
You could probably phone it in a bit more, I reckon.
They don't. No, an artist doesn't want to do that, right? They want to make stuff that's good. So
who wants to do that?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
It's
appreciate
a
that
quick
mindset.
way to remove their job satisfaction.
Right.
Make bad stuff.
yeah.
It's too good.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So you mentioned the sanctity of the kill monster in circle, so on the mechanical front.
Przygotowali? Czemu? Właśnie ten system z Bloodlinesami brzmi dobrze, bo nie jest takim oczywistym power creepem. To wręcz wygląda na system, który mogliby wprowadzić na stałe do gry. I to w sumie chyba wprowadzają na stałe, nie? Czy jeśli siądzie, zakładam. Wygląda trochę na taki system, który może być na zawsze. Wręcz rozbudowany potem dodatkowymi ascendancjami.
Those the hand portals, they've stabilized the breach and are now building their hives. And so you'll come across there's heaps of walls and constructs and some half organic, half inorganic. And you get the little spider things, which I think is the Twitch drop for the stream. You get those and they're kind of building and they're like putting together like molecule by molecule building these hives. And that's the one where you come in and you get given the power of the keepers of the flame, and that can just incinerate away all of the material, and you're kind of just like running around pretending to be a righteous fire build for a moment.
I'll just note as well, like you don't have to click any doors or like bump into any walls. They just evaporate.
You
just run around. You run around so burning stuff. It's kind of satisfying. You see ash going everywhere. There's a couple of things going on there. So generally when you get to the center, you summon an Aelith, you start the encounter. And effectively just kill a whole bunch of monsters. They're trying to get to her, they're trying to kill her. They're not super effective at it. We're not doing the whole like, they are persistently wanting to aggro on her. They're going to try and kill you. That's honestly more of an immersive flavor thing than it is like.
Jestem ciekawy, słuchajcie, jak wyjdą te rune graft skille, te nowe takie, z tych łapek, które będziemy sobie implantować. Bo no to daje trochę vibe takiego ulta, mam wrażenie. Jest trochę dziwne, ale z drugiej strony, jeśli to jest dodatek do już egzystującego arsenału, który posiadamy, to nie jest aż takim problemem.
As possible, and then they will turn into portals once the fight begins. If you just want to run to the center, start the fight, do the fight, and leave, go for it. The other thing here is though that, of course, obviously this can be a bit of a clear, speedy thing where it's like, so during those encounters, using the power of the purple flame, these kind of purple flames scatter out, and each of them kind of has a skill attached, just like an oh shit button. And so like if you're getting overwhelmed, there's like different things you can just click if you wanted to, if you needed to. Most powerful characters.
Właśnie, czy oni powiedzieli, czy one będą się same odpalać? Nie, no chyba guzik będzie mieć do nich normalnie. Patch notesy po Q&A mamy dostać.
That's honestly more to help out players that are kind of struggling or on the weaker end and aren't like, able to kind of keep up with it. So it just normalizes the difference between bottom end and top end a bit. Again, not meant to be intrusive, not meant to be like complicated. We kept it simple, and it's just like 99% of it.
I mean,
just
when you boil it down, it's basically just like a fast-paced wave defense. Like, just survive 6-8 waves of monsters that are rushing at you pretty fast, and but it doesn't have that same clear speed pressure that the like basic one has.
Yeah. So that's one encounter. Second encounter is like the traditional breach, the one that players have, you know, historically been playing. You activate a thing, the breach expands out. So these are breaches that haven't been stabilized yet.
Yeah.
So they haven't come through to build their hive. So you activate it, it starts expanding, you kill all the monsters, it's revealing, and then once you've killed enough, and if you can kill enough, like it can be kind of hard early game, but like towards end game, that's your goal. You'll notice a progress bar filling up, and once the breach gets to the end, that means that it will become stable. And so what was going to happen is when it becomes stable, the breach are going to send through their like difficult monsters, their elites, their enforcers, you know, their front.
Dobrze mi się wydaje, że oni chcą trochę z tego zrobić tak, jak miałeś na przykład ładowanie w Elysium, że może czasami nie będziesz chciał ładować do końca, bo nie jesteś wystarczająco silny, żeby ładować do końca. Znaczy nie wiem, tak teoretyzuję se.
And then in the center, the portal activates and a bunch of monsters and often a boss floods through. And so now you have to go back to the center and fight all that, kill everything, defeat the boss, get the loot, and then everything drops then and there once you successfully do that. If you can't do it, run away.
To jest Reward Breacha,
That's
no?
up to you. You know, you can still play it the old way if you want and like not get so much rewards, just kill as many as you want and move on. But generally speaking, you'll want to go back to the middle. You want to kill the either waves of hordes of monsters coming through the portal or the boss that spawns.
That like locks open then once you reach that stabilization point.
Yeah,
so
it locks open the time.
rush.
Yeah, so that's another good thing. Yeah, so the existing breach. I mean, obviously, it's pretty outdated and even imbalanced, and often people were killing the breach lords, the wild ones, in like a matter of seconds. But you know, I wanted to make sure that boss fight didn't have a time condition. So yeah, once it stabilizes, that's it. You just once you kill them, it closes. You have infinite time to kill that boss.
A to w sumie dobrze mówi, bo dobrze mówi Marek Roberciński. W obecnym starym breachu, jeśli w trakcie breacha zrespił ci się breach lord jako taki bossik dodatkowy, to było to irytujące, bo albo go praktycznie one-shotowałeś, gdzie nie stanowił żadnego problemu i wtedy było dobrze, albo nie byłeś w stanie mu prawie nic zrobić i ci się despawnował. Że tutaj jak zestabilizujesz breacha, zespawni się bossik, no to możesz się walić z nim do końca świata, nawet jak masz Queen build i 100 DPS-a. Co wydaje mi się, że jest lepszym rozwiązaniem.
Bit quicker. Encounter number 3 is the kind of sky fortress as you saw. It's very similar to the first fight. It's kind of like, oh, we didn't stop this hive. Some of these hives have been getting built for weeks or whatever, and now they're like, full giant mega structures. So you climb the beanstalk, as I called it, the breach beanstalk.
Nice.
You get up to the sky fortress, and honestly, it's kind of just like a map of breach monsters.
There's no
You're clearing
timer.
through.
It's not
Nah,
like
no
the
timer at this point. You can just clear the area and leave.
Oj, bez timera tym razem.
Taking your rewards with you, but in the center is like the hive encounter, the very first one, like a wave-based encounter. It's just a lot more epic, and you have to, the same exact thing, except Aelith's like, it's going to take a lot more explosive power to destroy the rest of this hive and seal this portal, so you might want to get out of here. So generally speaking, once you've killed all the waves, you then have to get out of the area before Aelith burns the entire thing to the ground.
Cool.
Czy generalnie znajdujecie se ule breachowe i je palicie, żeby przeciwnicy demoniczni się nie rozmnażali. Czy, dobra, jeszcze raz powiem, żeby wybrzmiało. Tak, będę robił oczywiście zarówno starter buildy przygotowywał oraz podsumowanie wszystkich zmian. To na luzie.
Basically didn't show those in the trailer because I did know that people were like wondering why you showed kind of so much of the Uber bosses for the regular content, but you didn't really show any of these
we
guys.
generally avoid showing bosses for sure, especially new ones. I'll you get a silhouette of it, a single emerge shot, and yeah, for sure, like for the Ubers, we're like, well, they've got like 10, 15 skills each. Let's show one mechanic we've changed of each, maybe not the best option. Like, I know people like their full mystery, so like maybe lesson learned in the future might just show nothing. But we only did show one of all of their skills that have changed, just so people get a general grasp of how they're changing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably, given the feedback, I'm probably just not going to show those again. So,
Fair enough.
We'll let it be a mystery. But yeah.
So this skill tree, you actually did it. You made a skill tree. Well done.
The tree.
But this tree is quite fascinating because it's not just a
Okej, mówią o
like
tym
a
nowym
meta
drzewku
progression system
genezisowym.
for the league or something. Like there is that. It is
Drzewko drzewa.
progressing, but it is a crafting system. It's a tree that is a crafting system. And from messing around with that, like it feels kind of brilliant. Like this is a really good idea. How did that come about?
It was kind of a mixture from Chris Octavian and I can't remember who. Me and him and kind of Andrew, we all kind of we just came up with ideas. But I think the original tree that spawns items or grows items and then hatches items came from Octavian, and the grafts, mind you, as well. He's got a
He's cooking.
nice creative brain on that one.
Octavian
Comes up with
wymyślił.
some cool ideas. I like.
Ale
that
nigdy
kind
nie
of
myślałem, że będę
out there style of design, which is good.
kulę z łona wyciągał. W sensie orby.
Yeah, so eventually we took that kind of idea. I was the one who brought Breach to the table and was like, oh, we can unify these. And that came from a interesting thing where in the Twisted Domain in PoE 2, you get these, you have these trees made of hands that the environment artists made. And I really love them. And I'm like, normally, because you're on a timer in that area and you're going hard, you're fighting monsters, you don't really get to appreciate a lot of the art assets in there.
Zoom.
And I was like, wow. Damn,
Właśnie, ludzie to naprawdę chcieli, żeby orby na drzewach rosły. Mark Roberciński mówi, mam cię, bratku.
So yeah, we kind of came up with this tree, and tree that hatches items, and it has this fruit, and then we were like, nah, like I don't want just a tree that has fruit. It needs to be gross and dark and horror. It's like this is a gothic world, and so yeah, we obviously went a little bit more crazy with the theming on it all. But I like it, right? It is dark. It's like a little. You've got this alien-esque demon species, right?
It's like squeezing the items out, like, with a bunch of plus.
Yeah, it kind of came like that, and then it's like, well, it needs a meta progression. The good thing about the tree having a passive tree is we get to reuse all the same code that our passive trees use, and then the other.
Ale sigmastycznie, nie kryją się. Bardzo fajnie, że mogliśmy to zrobić w formie drzewka rozwoju, bo pozwoliło nam to po prostu przekopiować cały kod, który odpowiada za obecne drzewko rozwoju. A po co? Po co sobie dokładać roboty? Pora na CS-a.
It works really well. And so that's kind of a pretty interesting one. I don't think I've ever seen it before. Someone doing anything quite like that. So
yeah, like I've seen some crafting trees and stuff, but they're usually separate, or there's like some little bit. But yes, like that's what I was thinking, because I'm thinking a lot about like how do you communicate crafting, because it's a pretty complicated thing generally, even in its simplest in Path of Exile. But this does seem to have like a very natural, more understandable way of communicating it, because you're.
No właśnie to kraftowanie drzewkiem mi się bardzo mocno kojarzy z kraftowaniem, słuchajcie, trumnami. Jeśli ktoś z was grał w lidze Necropolis, Boże, to się nazywało Necropolis? Chyba Necropolis to się nazywało. To był bardzo podobny koncept, tylko to jest dużo, dużo prostsze. Więc spoko.
The Crucible one.
That was items having trees. That wasn't a tree to craft. You could kind of argue Scourge is like the whole microwave mechanic, kind of, but it wasn't really a tree. It was like a grid. It was a bit different, So I don't know. It might be our first true crafting tree.
It's like I just can't help but wonder. Like we'll see, I guess, after a league. But I just can't help but wonder if you like accidentally stumbled upon one of the potential solutions to like how do you communicate crafting to players because it's so hard to do. It's like I don't know, maybe this has applications elsewhere. This idea.
We'll see how it goes, and there's a lot to expand on here. Of course, like when you have these kinds of tree systems and. You know, immediately people are going to be like, oh, keystones and, where's my crafting tree notables and masteries and jewel slots.
My cluster jewels for my crafting tree.
Yeah, build your own crafting tree.
Yes.
Jeśli chodzi o cały ten crafting, to powiedzmy sobie szczerze, ten crafting unikatów jest zdecydowanie najciekawszy z tego wszystkiego. Bo wydaje mi się, że to będą itemy, które będą całkowicie nowe buildy otwierać. Tak zakładam. Czy dadzą do gry daggery i asasyna? Wajcha, ja czytam twoje wiadomości, czy ty wiesz, gdzie się znajdujesz? Wajcha, wiesz, że to jest po 1. Wiesz, że asasyn i daggery już istnieją w po 1. Wajcha, słuchaj. Może po romperze to już do spania.
So those are all we've kept Breach 1, I don't know what you'd call it, fully intact on standard. Whereas on this league, it's the full prequel Keepers of the Flame mechanics. So full replacement. None of that is there in the current, while playing in Keepers of the Flame. Like, all of the breach nodes on the Atlas tree are gone, and all that. So you've got the current league. Obviously, our intention is that it goes core, but we'll take the better elements of it. One interesting thing here is obviously we still have all the old stuff. So if we miss the mark on some things, it's still there. We can bring it back. We can integrate it. We can, obviously it would suck, to have to accept that we have to keep using all the old art.
Ciekawe, czy pokażą w patch notesach zaraz. Słuchajcie. Nowe ascendancje, całe, w całości. Czy będą je trzymać? Bo możliwe, że dopiero je pokażą w następnych dniach. Czasami kryją info, niestety. Czy drop jest zbugowany? Nie, działa.
So yes, you don't have breach domains in Keepers of the Flame. You got all those new mechanics I described earlier. But that isn't to say there isn't a future where we have a prequel to the prequel. And we have, or an update, not necessarily another sequel, but you bring back some of those things that were good about it. So immediately I can see people coming to mind, but what about the uniques or the rewards? We have kept all of that. All of that can be spawned from the tree. You can grow pretty much all of it. You can find. I won't reveal exactly how to do that. You can figure that out.
Czekaj, co on powiedział?
You can generally get all of the historic rewards from Breach from the new mechanic as well. We've tried to keep all of that.
Does this mean Breach rings finally get a revamp after?
Czy będzie revamp Breach ringów?
Silly thing that
well, they got their improvement in PoE 2, so we had already accepted that having a double effect while in Breach. Especially given, that's only useful some small percentage of the time generally. Not good enough. So yes, the breach rings have been reworked. I believe the implicits are all max res of the corresponding element types. I can't remember what this one is. Whatever, we'll deal with that. But I believe it also restricts or constrains the mods you can roll in it. So it's like Zoff rings, fire mods, etc.
Okej, czyli raczej generalnie nie są zadowoleni z implicitów bridge ringów i to faktycznie nawet teraz, jak nie będzie stajmowanych bridgestone'ów, nie miałyby sensu stare implicity bridge ringów. No to raczej oczywiste było, że to będą musieli zmienić. Smocze Holly? Chodzi o Dragon Fruit? Piłem, spoko. Nawet mam gdzieś tu obok.
Surely you can't do 1,000 uniques worth of those.
I actually don't know what number they got to, but effectively it was just like, we'll just go until we run out of time. But yeah, like there's a whole bunch of uniques. It is here's the list of mods that it can lose, here's the list of mods that can be replaced with.
Dobra, słuchajcie. Jednak nie będzie aż tak OP, jak mówili. Czyli Mark mówi, że faktycznie jest tak, jak sugerował Arakel na czacie, że niektóre przedmioty, na przykład unikatowe, nie będą mogły stracić niektórych modów w przypadku bycia full-bornowanym. No bo to byłoby faktycznie może za bardzo psujące grę.
Full identity to be removed. A lot of it can be either the fluff stats, sometimes the downsides. some stuff
Sometimes
like
the
that.
downsides.
We'll
Okay.
just kind of see what happens there. If people love that, it would be the thing where we can add more and more and more and more, and then eventually we will have the entire unique pool covered. So we'll just see how that goes.
O, i powiedział, że na razie nie będą to wszystkie unikaty, ale jak system dobrze się przyjmie, no to oni są otwarci na to, żeby wszystkie unikaty koniec końców dało się fullbornować. Tak jakby modyfikować breachowo demonicznie.
Why not? I mean, we were shoving rusty bits of metal in ourselves and stuff before, so why not continue with that? But these are like, it was in the video, but I didn't really like kind of understand kind of how impactful they'd be until I was messing around with it, especially for leveling. But these are like pretty major skills and an extra layer, because especially so there's 16 of them, and you can have 2 of them, and they're like a mixture of auto casting skills, proc based things, so like on attack or something, and manually cast in some cases as well. Like I had a tornado that was like crazy. So these seem pretty significant. What's kind of like the plan for how impactful you want these to be, or like, especially at endgame, like they'll definitely like very impactful while leveling.
Obviously, there's
Ale
always
mu nóżka lata
going to
z
be
giemu.
a spectrum of usability. And generally speaking, yeah, they're going to be pretty powerful. But you know how strong characters can get. They can generally outclass everything. That being said, for a long way, they're going to be pretty damn useful. And even beyond then, there's generally you can scale the difficulty of the game like hectically. You'll notice like something I think you observed as well. The numbers on the skills are like out of control.
Yes.
That is because they don't scale with your stats.
Yeah.
Obviously, debuffs on the enemy, anything you debuff on them does. But yeah, they don't scale with your increases. The reason for that is that I wouldn't want it to be that if you're a spellcaster, you have to use one that's doing a spell, you know, because you generally focus on increases. And I didn't want it to be that, now in order to benefit from grafts...
No tego się spodziewaliśmy, ale w sumie to potwierdzili, że te skille z graftów nie skalują się swoją postacią.
Obviously, again, as said, if you reduce the resistances of the enemy, then the enemy takes more damage, that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's a kind of a lot of them that vary from utility through to just like pure offensive power. They all also just come with stats. So, and yeah, as you said, if you didn't want to, like, there's ones where you use skills and you can use that tactically. You can merge that with some of your abilities, or if you just want to, you know, effectively let it autocast. There are versions for that as well. If you just can't be bothered, that's also fine. And honestly, at the worst comes to worst, at the end of the day, they still kind of just give some mods, and that's fine. And they are obviously used to, if you want to get one that just like specializes in harvesting more graft blood, that's also a thing you can do, because those systems are linked. Like the grafts do gain the graft blood, which is what you give to the Genesis tree to give the items. So there's kind of a nice interlink between, you know.
Trochę się odnieśli w sumie do tego lęku, który się u mnie pojawił na czacie, bo niektórzy powiedzieli, że nie chcą klikać dodatkowej abilitki. I w sumie Mark Roberciński mówi, że kurde, no będą takie, które się same aktywować, będą takie bardziej pasywne, będą takie, które będziesz triggerował, będą też takie, które trzeba będzie klikać. Czyli okej, czyli jak ktoś nie chce, to nie będzie musiał klikać dodatkowego guzika. Zawsze coś.
So the design of mercenaries has informed this somewhat, then it seems.
Sadly, you can't gear your arms.
No.
Can't put items
Can't put a
on
bunch
them.
of rings
You can
on.
get some gloves.
Tell your arm to hold a sword. You know, that would have been kind of fun though.
That would be pretty cool. The way Octavian explained the graphs to me was he said, they're not you. And I'm like, somehow that's really creepy to hear. It's like they're attached to you, but they're not a part of you. That was explaining the scaling. Like that's why they don't scale with your stats, because they're not you.
They're independent life forms and therefore don't benefit from your passive tree.
We didn't do this, but we had a desire to do unique ones, which I thought was kind of going to be fun. We might do this later, like going core, we'll do it. But
O, czyli nie będzie unikatowych
what if you had a leg growing out of your back? What does that
graftów.
mean, you know?
Na razie,
And like,
na
what if
razie.
you had like a good jacked quadrilla arm or something? Because I was like, you could just have unique ones where they have like.
Ale
just,
mówi, że
like,
chcą dodać
deformations and you can have, like, random,
wyrastające z twoich
you
pleców
know,
stopy
deformed, crazy
unikatowe.
things going
Brzmi
on,
dobrze,
like,
ponieważ
I think I had a design. I was like, what if there was one that's like
Stopy.
converted? You're like, I don't care about the league. It converts all graft blood to gold or something, and it's a kind of like cursed pirate treasure arm or something. And you know, we'll see if that goes somewhere later. But I think that could be kind of fun to play around with. So
There's definitely some sort of like biomutant kind of combining of limbs and genetics and stuff potential here, maybe.
yeah, later mechanic, right? Like nice to have these things you can expand on. So.
Yeah, so it looks like you can synergize with them, but you don't necessarily scale them directly, like you're saying. You can debuff enemies and things like that. While we pan down to some of our additional questions, I've been noticing some that get mentioned a lot in chat that we'll kind of transition over to briefly. So WASD gets mentioned a lot, like if that's something that's planned for Path of Exile 1, if it's feasible, what
No
goes
mówili
into...
z wsadem, że będzie pewnie za 100 lat.
In order for WSD to happen in PoE 1, we need to get the rigs from PoE 2. In order for that to happen, we need to finish moving all the microtransactions over, which has definitely been a bit of a slow task that we kind of, need to get through.
Yeah.
And so effectively it would be, like, we do want to do that at some point. And then after that point, we can make WSD for PoE 1.
Ale przynajmniej potwierdzają, że to jest kwestia czasu i że prędzej czy później dostaniemy wsadzik w jedynce. Chociaż pewnie to zajmie następne 3 lata.
Getting all those things moved over to the new rigs is the limiting factor.
Yeah, and you want it to be kind of reaching a certain threshold, it seems like, of quality.
Well, I mean, so yes, you can
do it.
You can do it by
Like a
just like
controller.
where the character just rotates.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that gets like that. The quality of that is really not great. Like I don't think it feels good. So yeah, I kind of want to make do it with the proper rigs that we get. And look, that would be so beneficial to everything anyway. Like we're highly motivated to do that because it means that we don't have to rig a bunch of stuff for the old rigs anymore, which a bunch of our artists would definitely appreciate. So yeah, like we will get that done, and then but yeah, it's going to take a while. Like it could be quite a while.
The biggest benefit from the rigs is just that we're going to then be able to actually do a lot more new skills.
Yeah, animation.
In PoE 1 as well that actually use new animations.
A to jest w ogóle ciekawa kwestia. Mark powiedział, że jest dużo skilli, których chcieliby dodać do PoE 1, ale dopóki nie używają nowych rigów w jedynce, to nie są w stanie dodać niektórych skilli, ale jak będą też te rigi nowe, to będzie też łatwo dodać wsad.
So generally speaking, we have, kind of your spell projectile, spell AoE, spell buff. They're kind of separated into all these categories.
Yep.
And so when you generally do a buff, you just use the buff one, and AoE use AoE one. But as a result, we don't have just cool bespoke things where you, do a flip while doing doing crazy stuff like that. We're not going to be able to really get that in PoE 1 just because the cost is insane to animating that. You got to do that on 7 different characters, 7
O co chodzi?
rigs.
No generalnie chodzi o tak jakby konstrukcję postaci, tak jak model postaci w takim trochę uproszczeniu. Jeśli będą w stanie mieć modele postaci i animacje i te szkielet do animacji jak w dwójce, przełożyć to w końcu do jedynki, to im to bardzo dużo uprości właśnie i dodanie wsadu, i dodanie niektórych nowych umiejętności i tak dalej. Szkielet postaci do animacji, ładnie to napisali na czacie widzowie.
But we will do it eventually. It's just porting all those stuff.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting insight that you even plan to kind of bring this like PoE 2 rigging system over to PoE 1 for animations and things like that, because that indicates that the future of Path of Exile 1 is not very static visually. Like obviously we're seeing new stuff getting ported back, but potentially a lot of stuff getting remade and updated, and PoE 1 is anticipated to change a lot in that regard over time.
Well, I mean, yeah, it just like for no other reason that it makes our lives easier, we need to do it. But yes, it will have the side effect of making the game look better too, which I guess is good.
So another thing I saw mentioned in chat quite often was asking for Trial of the Ancestors, and what's the plans or status of that?
I mean, we want to do it. That ultimately is just a resource thing again. It's one of those ones that it can't be 1-to-1. It was too gameable, too solvable. Got to a point where I was like, this is the strat you do. We need to fix a bunch of
A
stuff.
ciekawy temat właśnie, o powrocie Trial of the Ancestors.
Question. It's honestly just whenever we assess the scope, it comes up all the time, and it's like, oh, we could do this, or this. What do we? And it's always going to come at a cost to something, and it just has been so far, at least 326, 327, that we've wanted to make sure that we had other priorities, I guess.
No bo Trial of the Ancestors wraca do PoE 2 i tu jest sugestia, że wróci do jedynki w pewnym momencie też. Jak ktoś nie pamięta, Trial of the Ancestors to jest taki auto-battler, trochę jak, nie wiem, Teamfight Tactics, tylko że w PoE było.
are at the next league or the next 2 leagues worth of discussions. It's like we have a list of things that we could do. It's
Fajne
in
to
that
było całkiem.
list.
Ja bym pograł
I'm
to.
sure it'll come up at some point. So we'll see.
And feel free to be coy about this, but it seems like since something similar is occurring in Path of Exile 2, that might help you kind of like solve some of these questions
Could do.
for PoE 1.
Could
so
do.
maybe that gives people an idea of a
Maybe.
time frame.
We'll have to
Well,
look and see.
as I said once, if obviously there's a could do with respect to PoE 2, but if we manage to go down that route, we get to do the exact same thing we did with Breach here, which is that if we have all the monsters made, and a lot of art made, and a lot of encounters, so even if it doesn't appear the exact same way, it'll allow us to do a massive shortcut, which would mean that all of a sudden it is way more possible to add as a feature without having to compromise too much else. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, let's talk endgame, and I'm sure you're anticipating a discussion on
Endgame.
T17 modifiers, modified design,
Dobre pytanie,
transitions, memory
Ziggy.
strand maps, risk scarabs, and map.
Bardzo dobre
modifiers.
pytanie od
List all
Ziggiego
these
D.
things out because
Co
all
z tier 17
come together
zażyganymi?
as a bit of a tangled mess of
Jak się odniosą?
late endgame.
Czy są zadowoleni?
And I'm just curious, like, before we even get into like what people are asking or what people are saying about it, I'm curious what your guys'
Dobre
thoughts
pytanie,
are
Ziggy.
on this topic, I guess, of tier 17 modifiers and their impact on late endgame.
I mean, the main thing I'd say there, like just as an overall view on it, is that like T17s, there's this tension between, like, it is not a good place to be when there is a tension between what players are enjoying and what the thing we want to try and do is. Like, that's like a problem that needs to be resolved. So effectively, it's like, what T17s are supposed to do in theory is something that we want, which is to say, like, that like you get something that you don't necessarily like want to have to play against, and like like you have to actually, and you have to deal with it or come up with a way to get around that. But in practice, players don't want to do that, so there's something clearly wrong here.
Czyli zdaję
So
sobie
something does need to change, but
sprawę,
it's a
że
little bit tricky to come up with
ludzie
something
nie
that we
lubią
want
te
to,
17. To
like,
już
that
dobrze.
both sort of satisfies our desires for like like interesting challenges that are different each time that you play them. That could, like all the there's like new and interesting things you encounter, but yet also something that the players actually like. So there's a problem for sure.
So what is your desires for tier 17 maps? Like, what do you want?
Well,
to
as I
see from
said, I
them?
don't think it's necessarily the desire for T17s as such. It's more the desire that you have like like interesting combinations of mods happen, and they're like, oh, this is a new challenge I have to rise to, and like, how am I going to deal with this, and that kind of stuff. And like, that's something that like in practice players aren't like really liking. So as I said, there's a problem here for sure. It's just a question of how we kind of satisfy that.
100%, they're not in the right spot.
Yeah.
I am of the like, we need to go back to the drawing board a little
sure.
bit
Oh.
here, because like we, and to be fair, we are like trying to band-aid it, but we can only do that for so
Mark
long.
Roberts
right? We
otwarcie
kinda just
powiedział,
need to reinvent something here a little bit.
są do dupy
Like, they were
obecnie.
intended to be the penultimate
Zdaję
bosses
się
that allow you to
sobie
do
sprawę,
that.
że mi się nie podobają również.
But
Wrócimy do
also
podstaw,
now,
przemyślimy je od zera.
this non-sustainable,
A niektórzy pytają, dlaczego tier
method
17
where
są
you
słabe i
have to
nieprzyjemne,
obviously
bo
a lot of
posiadają
people trade
modyfikatory,
for it,
które
and
sprawiają,
in
że
that
mapkę
case
i
you've
się
got
biega bardzo
a bunch of
nieprzyjemnie.
modifiers people hate. You've got this like thing where because of the mods you end up devolving down to the in-game strat becomes, as you said, stacking map mod effect and modifiers via risk.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's not fun. It's not
It's
ideal.
not fun!
We
Yes.
tried to narrow the gap with T16 and a half, so that kind of worked, and then you get some other weird problems where like, because those can be A-prop corrupted and tier 17s can't. There's some weird issues there as well. And honestly, it's like, it is a kind of mess. And we intend to keep band-aiding it until we can drawing board, but I would expect you'd probably see a pretty...
I think it needs a full redesign.
Yes.
It needs a full
Tak.
redesign to try and see if we can come
Boże,
up with a way.
to jest najlepsza rzecz, jaką dzisiaj słyszałem. Że oni otwarcie przyznają, to wymaga całkowitego redesignu. To jest najgorsza rzecz w PoE od jakiegoś roku. I cieszę się, że w końcu pierwszy raz się do tego odnieśli tak konkretnie, że tak, robimy to od zera. Super.
I don't think that we've worked out exactly how this can work though. Like,
Dzięki,
I
Bojano.
don't think that like the best, most rewarding content in the game should also be the tickets to the Ubers. And in that well, that even that's like broad and sounds weird when you first say it, but
It's
like
so hard because
it's kind of, you know what I mean, where it's something's wrong.
There's
here.
a
Something's
fundamental
wrong here.
tension with you want the hardest content in the game to be the most rewarding.
yeah.
But like the moment you do that, there's all sorts of incentives that come into play that mean that people don't like it when like there's a map now that you can't run because the because the mods are not good for you and that kind of stuff. And like, so then there's also it's a problem.
It's a little bit of a mess of problems.
It's a
Because
problem.
Any individual part of this I look at, I'm like, well, this is actually okay in some circumstances.
Right.
Like, it's okay for there to be some modifiers, maybe
Right.
Like, I'm sure, I think you guys feel the same. Where it's like,
Yeah.
it's okay for there to be some modifiers that are like better for other builds.
But in
and
the
worse for
moment that
others.
it's like it
But there's
feels
a
like a
point where it
huge
breaks.
economic penalty
Yeah.
to that,
So the
you're
economy kind of
immediately
affects
like
that.
you're immediately
Ja przyznam, że w moment, w którym moja postać w moment, w którym muszę przebiec parędziesiąt tier 17, mi się odechciewa grać. Ja już zaczynam się rozglądać za inną grą. To jest moment, w którym poe mi brzydnie.
Good, nice.
You know, there are bits and pieces changing. I'm not going to stop band-aiding just because we have a grand plan for the future. Well, we have an absence of a grand plan, a desire to have a grand plan for the future. But we will. I would be very surprised. I know I shouldn't be promising content in the fall expansions because variables always change, but I'll be very surprised if we don't do a more drastic shift in 328 to solve this problem because, it's now long enough that it's not worth it. So obviously, hopefully the changes we are making improve things in a pretty meaningful way, is shake up the meta a little bit. But yeah, there's still going to be some woes and...
Ty, ciekawe, czy będzie ascendancja związana z mechaniką betrayal. Zakładam, że nie, ale w sumie, a może? A może za Katarinę? Jakaś ascendancja? Ty. Ciekawe.
Something. Honestly, similar to how we did 031 for PoE 2, if we can come up with something that is just like a universal success and like is blatantly a win and isn't going to, lower the value of people's economy mid-league and stuff like that, I wouldn't be... against if we can come up with something because we're obviously going to design it soon. If we can come up with something or a piece of that something to deploy to, mid-league, mid-keepers of the flame, I will push for that. I will just have to see if that's something we can actually do because often these things will mean like, oh, now all of X will become devalued. And I don't want to like ruin people's mid-league economy and wealth and just destroy it because we decided we want to make a change. And so, there's considerations to make.
Yeah, from speaking to Octavian about the tier 17 modifiers as well, I can tell they're kind of weighing on him, like he really wants to do stuff with them.
I think we're all on the same page. I honestly don't even know if anyone really is disagreeing with, like maybe in little ways, but I think everyone's kind of...
Mówi, że u nich wewnętrznie nikomu się nie podobają tier 17. Podoba mi się, że nie gryzą się w język.
Deal damage.
Alright, you're gonna jump on this grenade. How does that modifier come into being?
No, I mean to be fair, I like things that are just a bit more. I'm a bit more masochistic in that regard.
That's what I was gonna say.
I'm not attempting to put my masochistic views on the player base. I understand that generally speaking, people aren't for that kind of thing. But I also like trying those things, seeing how it is, and there are things where these can exist. Like if this was behind a couple more layers of some sort of more niche corruption mechanic where players, or some crafting system over here where players can kind of choose to do it but don't feel forced to do it.
Miasme nam dobre newsy dla ciebie. Specjalnie dla ciebie dodali swordy do PoE1.
Stuff, but in the broad mod pool, some of these mods are, they're not really working.
It was
evidently
that one and the like action speed reduction from using your skills, and I think there was the petrification statues get mentioned a lot as well.
It's the drowning orbs plus that plus it's just like, okay, look, thanks for making me slow. I mean the thing about slowness is you do feel it, hence why. Whereas like often you can just be like, I'm just gonna ignore that. That's a nothing mod.
Physically painful sometimes.
So but it's a bit overboard right now.
Yeah, it's like I see the problem here. Like I'm so torn on this because I want these sorts of. I get the idea of these modifiers being like things that you can feel like that they have a bit of an impact, and they're not just like.
Well, I don't want everything to just be another multiplier making the monster get closer to one-shotting you. You know what I mean?
Mechanics to happen.
Yeah, you want something, but there are some that are okay, and there are some that are not, and we just haven't found the perfect spot.
There's an analogy about this, which is like, how do you feel about immunities in D2? It's another sort of similar situation, right? Where it's like it forces...
Jak sobie myślę na takim najbardziej łopatologicznym jeszcze poziomie o tych tier 17, to wydaje mi się, że po prostu zboostowałbym bazowo wszystkie potwory tier 17-kowe, może dodał jeszcze jakieś groźne typy, whatever, i włożyłbym większość właśnie trudności tych tier 17 po prostu w te nowe mob typy, które mogłyby być bardzo niebezpieczne, mogłyby mieć dużo HP i tak dalej, ale usunąłbym wszystkie te popieprzone mody, typu 200% więcej elemental damage'a, 50% penetracji, co 7 sekund nie bijesz przez 3 sekundy. Będzie skrót, Nathaniel, na pewno. Dzięki, Posion.
15 different ways to scale difficulty and reward, as opposed to just like, here's the stat I stack.
Ustrałeś się na nie aż za bardzo? Słuchaj, Chris, jeśli GGG otwarcie mówi, że ten system jest tak zły, że według nikogo w ich firmie ten system nie jest dobry, jeśli połowa czatu się tutaj mówi, tak, Piotrek, masz rację, ten system jest beznadziejny, odechciewa mi się grać, jak zaczynam z nim wchodzić w interakcję, to ja się ustrałem na ten system, czy ten system jest do dupy? No jest do dupy. Dlatego się cieszę, że w końcu coś z nim zmieniają. W zasadzie to pozytywny jest ten aspekt streama, bo cieszę się, że zmieniają coś, co daje takie frustracje w grze.
Again, drawing board, 100%, back to it, revisit it. I'd be surprised if we're not doing something for 328 as much as I told myself I wasn't going to promise following expansion content, but you know.
There's some patch notes coming out later today. Is that, or is it later?
Yeah, I don't know what the time is, but you know, our 11 a.m. NZ or whatever it is kind of thing. Like
there'll probably be like a rollout over time as well, from what I'm hearing. Like
that's just generally the case because patch note writing is a surprisingly difficult task. Yes. It takes quite a while to get all that stuff.
I mean, you've got an extra week to make additional changes. Like people are like
sure, there's
this
always
and
that
they
too.
like get extra ideas and stuff, and some of this stuff may be in there, but it can be. Have a look at some of those in there, but it sounds like we're kind of on the same page with you guys, at least regarding a lot of this.
Yeah, I don't think you'll. I mean, obviously, it obviously needs attention. So yeah.
All right, it's cool. So on Endgame though, in like a longer term, from a longer term perspective, we have a pretty good Atlas endgame system right now. Like, I think it's pretty well liked, apart from this issue that we just talked about. Like overall, the core of it seems great. Like I can sing many praises about it. But previously, like historically, you've done a lot of complete endgame overhauls, and to the point that it was definitely a trend. Like it seemed to be like the way that you guys would go about it. Like every so often, there'd be a major endgame overhaul. Is that still the case? Like have you achieved something that you kind of want to keep and maybe change instead?
I don't think that we would want to not overhaul the endgame again. Like the reason that it's not like we're like, oh, this is what we're set on, we're now just going to keep this forever. Certainly not. It's more just it comes down to like it is hard to come up with the ability to do a scope for that, and it's been especially hard, you know, since we've had like PoE 2 in in early access. So it's kind of like we just need to get back to a point again where like that level of scope can happen. And I don't think will be necessarily that far away from the point where that should be fine again. It's just that like, like it really is just a question of like, can we get the ability and time to do it?
To jest ciekawa kwestia pełnego reworku endgame'u.
That far away before we do something like that again, and like you do need to change the stuff every once in a while. Like it does become stagnant eventually.
Nie wiem, co bym chciał zmienione.
I think we should do another big overhaul.
Mówią, że chcą to zrobić,
ale
mam wrażenie, że od momentu, w którym dodali drzewko...
Fundamentally the PoE 1 Atlas and the
Ja mam wrażenie, że nawet nie trzeba żadnego wielkiego endgame'owego overhaulu, od kiedy dodali Atlas 3. Mam wrażenie, że Atlas 3 jest tak dobry, że w sumie to ciężko wymyślić coś lepszego.
Like a PoE 2 like system or something like that. Like but we do need, would need new pinnacles and new challenges there and that sort of stuff. Like that's something that we will have to do eventually. It's just getting the time.
That kind of stuff, like escalating the narrative and cycling out bosses and cycling out characters and changing all that stuff is like generally pretty harmless and generally cool. Like you're not really messing with the systems and the core of what people like and the cycle that people like. So like obviously that's always just a nice win when you get to be like, all right, what are the next set of what much like Breach has now evolved and gone forward in time, so will the end game story at some point, and we will do that for sure. And it's just like there's always mechanics that come with it. And sometimes if you add those mechanics, they can't coexist with some existing ones because it overcomplicates everything, it becomes a mess. I would hate to have, I don't want to add more systems and now all of a sudden it's extra steps even more over to have to do on your maps before you run them and that kind of stuff. So sometimes things need to be replaced, but like,
A czemu nie chcecie
we
po
appreciate
polsku?
the fact that PoE1's endgame is in a pretty overall. I mean, everything always has its problems. I'm not going to deny it. We just discussed them, as you said, but it's in a pretty damn good spot, and there's so much good about it, and I don't want to ruin that. So we'll be very careful with that stuff. But honestly, generally, we'd like what you might find is that we use this T17 thing as a motivation to go, what is the redesign? Okay, let's use that as the like crux of what we design around and fix the problem both narratively and like game design wise by removing these problems from the game, creating something new in its stead.
Nie, jak się kupuje support pack, to się od razu dostaje.
Let's say you went into a meeting today to try and come up with a new end game for PoE1, like an overhaul for it. Would it still have an Atlas Passive Tree like it has now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I already,
That's just
there's
a
no
big
way
win.
you'd get rid of that.
I already
it's
know.
too good, right?
I already know what it is, so I already have it in my mind.
Oh, okay. You were saying before last time
It's
that
deep in my mind.
you've
but
got
it's there.
you got a story arc planned.
Well,
out.
the Secrets of the Atlas was intended to be part one
Yeah.
of a multi-part, right? So
definitely set
I've
us
got
up.
the other parts, or at least most of it. And yes, the tree is still there. And honestly, I don't think anything is fundamentally in my plan in my head is changing enough to cause any concern. So, I mean,
all right, great,
it's all for the better. I'm pretty confident of that as well.
great.
And now everyone will have to just wait to see what those
Yes.
ideas are for an undetermined amount of time.
I assume we'll get a follow up to the story maybe next expansion perhaps.
Czy pająk z dropów za to będzie też w PoE 2? Dobre pytanie, zakładam, że tak. Zakładam, że tam na forum, gdzie masz podlinkowany link na czacie teraz, pewnie jest odpowiedź na to pytanie?
Itself, but I know it was mentioned that there would be a bit of balance stuff going on here, and I've had a chat to a few people and scoped out some things. Like for example, there is the unplayed assassin that gets asked about a lot, and it seems like something's happening for assassin.
Yeah, that actually came kind of recently. We were just like, can we really? I think what I had said, and my intention was to do this for both games, is like we should at least look at. Like at least with respect to ascendancies, look at the least played class, especially if it's been consistently least played.
Yeah.
And make sure that that's on the radar and getting some level of improvement. And even if it means we have a go at it, and if the scope's too high, we do it a bit later, and if the scope's within spec, we do it immediately. In this case, yeah, we looked at the assassin. It was like 40% lower, at least on the primary leagues, it was like much lower usage than even the next class, and then, so it wasn't.
Czyli chyba jednak nie dostaniemy jeszcze reworku Slayera, ale faktycznie nowy Assassin, nie wiem czy go widzieliście, wygląda dużo ciekawiej niż stary Assassin. Wydaje mi się, że faktycznie będzie grany. W ogóle Assassin jest chyba jedyną klasą, która wyglądała lepiej na Ruthlessie niż poza Ruthlessem, bo przenieśli mu modzik z Ruthlessa, że all damage can poison. Po Q&A, Mateuszu.
Why is the ruthless poison node better than the non-ruthless
No
poison
właśnie.
node? Weren't the classes non-ruthless meant to be a bit weaker? And then it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's a thing we can maybe draw inspiration from. And, we just did our whole, process for
Amazing.
that. But yeah, so we teased that, last night? Whatever the time zone is.
O 6:35 to wrzucali dzisiaj.
Hopefully people enjoy it and play it. But yeah, I kind of want to get into the rhythm of every expansion. At least we look at, not necessarily change because it depends on the scope a bit, but we at least give it a go of making sure we look at the worst class no matter what, even if ascendancy classes aren't part of our the package of things that we're wanting to improve. Because sometimes we do a focus on the ascendancy classes, other times skills, other times this, other times that, and but I was like, okay, it's like. This is pretty bad. Let's do something about it this time and see if we can be consistent with that. No promises, but we'll try.
And there's a little bit of a wild card in the mix here with Bloodline ascendancies. So just to clarify, these are ascendancies on top of your original class that you can choose where to put your points.
Same point pool, and the reason a lot of people ask, or immediately are like, well, why don't you give separate points like affliction? And the real reason is combinations are great, but also I didn't want to have to water down the power of the points. That's too much power creep, like to add to a character to be able to give trees at large. And so there was that interesting part of it. The other second part is that we wanted to make sure that there weren't enough points that you could put all 8, at least generally speaking. So you'll find most of the classes only have 1 to 3 notables, kind of up to 6 points worth that you can spend.
Yep.
And this is so always
Czekaj,
no
będzie
matter
jakaś
what,
klasa
what ascendancy you are still
ascendancjowa,
matters.
która będzie miała tylko jeden
Didn't wanna
notable
just
do
make it
wydania?
that literally the entire game, no matter what base class you
To
are,
ciekawe.
where you start on the tree is the same if it happened to be that a certain bloodline was OP.
Ale to będą
which
takie
sure,
rozkminy
one of
ludzie
them
mieli
probably
z tymi
is.
nowymi ascendancjami.
And all of a sudden now every
Ale
single
to ciężko
person
na
is just
startera,
this one
nie?
thing. It wanted to be like, nah, I think we want to do a feature that adds as much in-game build permutations as possible.
Yeah.
Well, and also what's cooler than just being able to take the powers or learn the powers.
Dobra, już sobie wyobrażam, jak jakiś nubek daje się zbejtować, na przykład na build starterowy, polegający na ascendancji z Aula przykładowo. To będzie kino.
Holy powers, but I'm also going to embrace my dark side over here, or maybe the ways of the Asmerian. You get like a Shabi Guardian thing or something. Oh, sorry, I've got support classes on my brain all the time. So, you have your Slayer something, So, the permutations honestly are endless, and obviously metas are found and builds are created and all of that. But what we obviously find is that, there's a few awesome perks here that I kind of like, is that we can add motivation to doing certain content that otherwise you wouldn't normally do. That's great. We can add this for future content very easily, right? There's probably other bosses that you're like, oh, we can do this and this and this. Like, it's very easy to expand this and take it away. And the reason we're able to do that is because it is an in-game feature. It's not like overcomplicating the campaign and that player's experience. Like, you wouldn't want a second class in the campaign. People were like, holy, I've already got a tree and I've got this tree.
You mean a third class?
A second, essentially. It's like, I've got too many classes. There's too much stuff going on. So being able to keep it in the end game is an in-game unlockable thing, where we can expand this feature over time. Now, all of that, of course, is under the assumption it succeeds. Again, we'll listen to the feedback, check what players think about it. But it's assuming it does well, again, pretty high confidence. Yeah, it will remain and will keep expanding, keep extrapolating, keep changing. And then it's
No i potwierdzenie tego, że ten system bloodline'sowy nie jest związany z ligą, tylko właśnie bardziej coś takiego permanentnego, co są chętni rozwijać, dodawać cały czas na bieżąco nowe ascendancje i tak dalej. Strasznie cool.
A lot of cool things you can do, and yeah, I mean, I am actually real excited to see what happens here. More than most things, I'm always like kind of excited to see what players do with things, but like here, I'm just like, I don't know. Well, let's see what happens. Like, it's gonna be real cool, and I suspect you'll get, like, for quite a while, people narrowing down on exactly what the perfect combinations are for different things. And, yeah.
Well, it definitely seems like one of those things where you just design something cool and we'll see what players do with it, because there's too many permutations there, right? Like, I don't even know what the math on that is, but it's pretty crazy, the amount of like new nodes.
Number.
Yes, several
infinite. No, not obviously,
several dozen new nodes accessible to all of the existing ascendancies. That's a lot of numbers.
Yeah. I am. Yeah, I'm like thoroughly excited. I'm gonna just do the whole, like, what boss do I feel like being this league? I'll just see if I can make that work, and then so I'm actually gonna go backwards. I'm gonna pick my bloodline based on what boss I want to kind of embrace the power of. Then I'll pick my ascendancy. Then I'll pick my, I'll go from there. And then I'll pick my skill, and I'll end up a support character. I'm sure.
Flavor building on this.
Well, if there's no mercenaries, I need to be a good mercenary to my friends. That's my philosophy.
Back to
No
being
tak.
mercenary again, eh?
Markew się wydaje taki zbazowany zawsze, ale z drugiej strony zawsze gra supportem.
Yeah, 100%.
Ty, dobra. Na Steamie im się coś pokićkało. O, to nieźle.
We'll see what
There's
happens.
an option there, isn't there? Okay.
Co tu się wydarzyło?
More forbidden flesh and flame. I don't know what I want to call them. Yeah.
All right. Continuing on the balance topic from asking around the PoE community, some of the more common things that just kind of come up was, well, the most popular thing was just the general idea of buffing underprivileged skills, like giving them some love. So you mentioned this idea of like looking at the worst thing in terms of ascendancies. Is that something you want to do with skills
Yeah,
as well?
we're always, there's a little bit of okay, well, there's a few things to go into here. Like, for example, yes, there's obviously the core skills that are bad. Sometimes those are then enabled by something else going on, some other feature getting added, uniques, whatever. But most of the time, yeah, they're just, as you said, underprivileged. We've done a decent chunk of numerical changes here, mostly numerical. Some are, I don't want to say unsalvageable, but like,
Czekaj, co?
you know, they don't have the same level of different multiplicative scaling that other skills could get. There's not too many though. And they require more, what I'm getting at there is they require more of a rework. In order to actually
Mówi, że
become
niektóre skille,
truly
które
viable.
chcieli pobufować, doszli do
That
wniosku,
being
że
said, yes, there are plenty that
nie
always
da
need
się ich
numerical
realistycznie
improvements.
zbufować, potrzebują reworka.
I don't know, and then you got things like
Ale chyba będą duże
the
zmiany
trials and
balansowe.
gems,
Czekam na
right?
pocznoty.
Cool concept. You know, 90% of them weren't really seeing any use.
Yeah.
A few were, and now those are going core, I believe, into heist is what it is. But as meanwhile, also full balance pass. So hopefully some more come to the foreground there, and you know,
Yeah, so
so
lots
on.
of
So
buffs
like,
for those.
yeah, but like honestly, this is like a kind of endless task. It's like almost like you could just never stop. So like
Yeah.
we like to just do batches at a time and send it, and we try and do as many as we can. But like each require discussions. They can be quite time consuming. Some are more obvious, where it's like okay, obvious increase, and others are like, do we want to do this or do we want to rework it? And then you get lost in a rework discussion. It's important to like cut the time. And it's like, actually, look, for now, buff it. We'll come back to it later. But yeah, like we get through as many as we can.
Dzięki, Major.
We've done a bunch. You know, I could always say, ideally we'd do more, but like, I don't think, again, there's no real end point to that. So yes, sure. I wanted this patch to be very class centric in terms of balance. And like we did,
Yeah.
I would say we did a decent chunk, but it's, you know, we didn't get to cover every base 100%. So obviously, like, you got the Bloodline classes, you've got grafts, which are character-centric, and then we got the whole set of new skills and support gems, and some changes around that. There are a bunch of other changes, but yeah, like, it's that thing where I
Okej,
don't know
ciekawe
if I'm
czy
ever
faktycznie
satisfied.
będzie
Always
dużo
just
zmian
you wanna do
balansowych
everything,
skilli
you wanna
typowo.
literally do it all and you never can. So like, hopefully there's
No bo
enough.
Mark mówi, że głównie skupiali się na balansie poprzez właśnie zmianę tu ascendancji zmieniają, tu zmieniają, dodają te nowe klasy, tu dodają nowe skille, ale okej, tak długo jak nowe skille będą dobre, to już będzie potencjalnie meta shake-up. Mam nadzieję, bo ten lightningowy wyglądał super.
And they're changing a lot each league as well by virtue of like the new stuff that you're adding, like ascendancy changes or new skills or whatever. All that stuff is creating lots of new builds all the time. But when it comes to the skill buffs, I think it's more just about, like you said, like someone has like a favorite skill that has been languishing. Some sweep lover
It
is out
sucks
there
to
just crying
see.
still.
It sucks to miss something, like, because you see, what happens when you buff everything, then you get a lot of like, but what about this? And you're like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, I wanted to, I really wanted to, and you know, and then sometimes we still try and just squeeze it in before the patch, and we just try and get as many done as we can. But yeah, like again, it is ultimately a resource game, and we do as much as we can. We really do, combined with both new stuff to change everything up, bringing like excessive outliers down, and we do try and improve as much as we can. And this time we took it upon ourselves to add a bunch of new skills and supports, and so I don't know, there's heaps there, but you know, it's that thing where a few people are going to have missed their thing, and there's a few, you know, you want to do hand casting, you want to do that, you don't want it to just, I know that's come up, and I think even you mentioned earlier as well, it's just like, it devolves down to often, you know, either Archmage or...
W sumie bawi mnie to, że całe community od lat mówi self-casting, a GGG zawsze puszuje termin handcasting, że rzucasz czary z rąsi. Nie wiem, czy mają jakąś agendę wewnętrzną wewnątrz firmy, że pamiętaj, musisz używać terminu handcasting.
Sometimes you get some of it, not all of it and everything, but yeah, there's heaps here, just, you know... You never quite catch everything, but there will be new metas, there will be new builds, and probably a lot of existing stuff will still be, pretty decent. But yeah, there's a bit of nerfs, bit of buffs, bit of, it's how it goes with all of this balance stuff, really. It's a bit chaotic, but, there's something satisfying to it. But, as I said, you never really fully get everything, and thus you never fully feel satisfied.
You kind of answered my question a bit, because like one of the popular archetypes that's come up as being a bit problematic is hand casting, self-casting spells, and usually I think what gets brought up with that is like slow base cast speed, and that in turn making things like echo feel bad, and mana costs being
I don't
rough
think
as well.
we've done that enough justice, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's certainly on the hit list. Yeah. So we'll either we can get to do some stuff, in this coming week if it's simple, if we can think of it. It's not off the cards. That being said, there's always next
Drogi
expansion
jestem
as well. But
podcast.
honestly, you never know,
Jezus,
because
trwa.
often these external variables, like the new classes and stuff like that, can really change these things up, without you really predicting it as well. So, I can't speak to what we'll do in 3.28 with respect to all of this, because we have to observe what happens in this patch first, given how many variables we've added. And like we said, we've added a nearly infinite number of permutations of builds with the new Bloodline classes and stuff like that. So, we'll see how all that goes. And then, but we'll just keep doing it. It never stops, never ends. It literally is an infinite task. You never run out of stuff to do here, so we'll just
Co za
keep doing it every
syzyf.
single patch.
Mark Roberts mówi, nasza praca nigdy się nie zakończy. Zawsze jest coś do zmiany i do dodania.
Stacking builds in general, but ES probably has been getting mentioned a lot more. Forbidden Ride, Ephemeral Edge, things like that, but also just ES compared to live.
Męczennik,
Yeah,
no.
it does happen.
Classic.
There are band-aid fixes and stuff like that we always like to do, whether or not you can consider them band-aids or just like, you just change some numbers here and there. Sometimes in the case of like Ephemeral Edge, it can be a matter of like, yeah, that's an acceptable thing to do. It just shouldn't be so easy to do. So
Dobra.
yeah, I wouldn't say have like, there's
Zaraz
no broad
będą
solution here,
patchnotesy
but I
i
agree
zobaczymy,
that
czy
there's a
będzie
problem where it's like
kolejny
more traditional,
nerf
just do a thing.
Ephemeral
Feels like
Edge'a.
it's now wrong. It feels like you got to like pre-commit to being like, what is this singular thing I'm going to stack and then pick the thing that scales off of that. So be it like attributes historically, not just
Nerfuriora.
it's always
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's always like, yeah, you just like heavily stack this one thing and here's a unique that scales off that thing. And it's like, well, that's on one part is interesting. It's like fun. That
Yeah.
is the build.
I'm in two minds on it. Like
But
that.
then when every build is just like, okay, well, that's stacking this, that's stacking that, that's stacking, and you start going through the builds and you're like, okay, well,
We definitely like very slowly got here over time, I feel like, in the
Yes.
stacking, where it just became kind of like, yeah, just a little bit at a time. It became, PoE1 became all about stacking
it
builds.
really primarily comes down to mostly to the unique items that got added, right?
Yeah, it's often...
Generally,
To jest
unique
ciekawa
items,
dyskusja,
special things
że
are
generalnie
what
doszliśmy do takiego punktu w grze, w którym
you know,
stakowanie jest o wiele, wiele
or off energy shield,
za
or off
silne.
life, or off ES,
No
or
wiadomo,
off
powiedzmy
mana,
sobie szczerze, zazwyczaj to jest int
or off
stacking,
int, or off strength,
bo na, nie
it
wiem,
does end up
deck
in
stacking
that,
nikt nie
and then
narzeka
some unique gets
na jego
added,
potęgę,
like
ale no wiecie.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, here's another 6% increased intelligence. There we go. That build's now just got a little bit more of an edge, and you do kind of just power creep into that point for sure. So
It's like, I don't even know like how much of a problem it is, but it's like definitely identifiable that it's like a big aspect of the build meta for PoE1.
it
and
is. I think
muscling
it's
other things out maybe.
I think it's too dominant. But on the other hand,
It's fun though. Like,
yeah,
people
it's
like
fun,
stacking
it's
builds.
cool, it's interesting.
So you don't really wanna
You could
kill them.
argue it's what makes things kind of it's part of PoE to a degree.
Yeah, it's an actual action RPG.
Yeah, so
thing,
you got to
as
be
well.
careful with it. You don't just
Yeah.
want to take away all the fun and just make everything flat and boring. On the other
Right,
hand,
yeah.
but you also don't want it to feel like a player's made a mistake by playing a more traditional, build, and it often can feel that way. So there's a fine line here. Hard to be at that fine line, but yeah, some things are a bit too OTT at this point, and other things are too far on the bottom end. And the other problem is if they start buffing all the skills, well, a lot of those skills might see use, but they'll still see use in that stacking ecosystem. And then it's like, well, have you really made a new build at that point? Like,
I think that's sometimes the problem is like, my builds feel the same because
Yeah.
ultimately like I'm using different skills, but they're all, I'm just stacking on all of them or something like that.
I don't have a like, here's the solution.
Yeah,
because it
I
really
don't know
isn't
if there
how
is
it
one.
actually, it's not really how it
Kind of
plays.
gauging your thoughts on it.
Dodajcie wsady, nie chcę już klikać tyle myszki. Nie wiem, czy widziałeś, Karol, ale przynajmniej dodali bardzo dużo quality of life, żeby się mniej klikało. Myślę, że tak myślałem nad tym trochę Nieironicznie, te zmiany, które wprowadzili w tym patchu, to jest prawdopodobnie paręnaście albo parędziesiąt tysięcy kliknięć mniej dla mnie w przeciągu jednej ligi. Jak myślę o samych tych zmianach Alteration Orbów i Augmentation Orbów, to już pewnie jest ta jedna zmiana, nie wiem, z 10 tysięcy kliknięć mi oszczędzi. Myszka dłużej pożyje.
Then you're winning, right?
Balance is a journey. Yes, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey.
It is. It actually is.
Yeah, for real.
I mean, sure, it's just the stops along the way. Every expansion.
That's it. Yes.
Every reroll.
Well, a nice stop on this expansion I noticed is wand. So you did actually mention it last 326 Q&A. You said wand specifically. I went back and watched, and I was like, oh, interesting. I should ask about that. And then you showed off a bunch of wand skills, and it seems like there's some nice wand buffs going on in there to help wanders out.
Yeah.
Jak grałem
There's
Wonderem
a
nawet
couple
w
things.
zeszłej
There's
lidze
like
w sumie.
a bit of a hidden gem is that there's attack mod only wand based types in the
So
in the
good.
series now. So they're literally, and they're kind of themed more around
Kinetic wands, yeah.
wands, and so because that's always been a bit of an annoyance. Like there is a place for the hybrids, but that's been a bit of an annoyance. So now we get the like pure attack ones to help it a bit easier to roll for those builds.
Czekaj.
You got way more of a skill set to
Dobrze rozumiem? Dostajemy nowe bazy wandów typowo pod ataki?
Generally speaking, the skills
Okej.
they can be pretty hectic.
To huge całkiem.
Pretty
Yes,
well.
kinetic round is very hectic.
But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a cool theme, just like that general kind of like
Harry Potter?
physical kinetic energy kind of thing going
Yeah.
on. We had a little bit of it with kinetic bolt, kinetic blast. So we just extrapolated on that theme, and
Yeah.
now you got your wanders, and it's the thing. And then we also added a little bit of like kind of wind magic, some tornado stuff.
It's like a force wall that you can
Yeah, the kind of
blast with
force
kinetic
wall.
blast.
You've got like a little bit of inspired by Huntress from PoE 2 a little bit with some of the, I walked upstairs the other day and saw some QA playing, and I'm like, oh, someone's embracing the tornadoes, and he's like, that's not even half the tornadoes you can make. And I was like, all right, sweet, all right. I was like, yeah, that's PoE 1, and I walked out of the room. I was like, all right.
And I blasted like Act 1 through 4 yesterday on a wander, and I was just like, man, this is so good. I was having the time of my life. Like, oh my lord, the new skills and the wands. And it's like, it's not just the kinetic ones as well. Like, it actually pairs pretty well with the other ones that have like the flat added elemental damage. And
Yeah.
and it all kind of came together a bit. It's like, oh,
It's cool.
I definitely in the past I just kind of like wrote wands off. I was like, yeah, they're never gonna get to wands. It's like forgotten about.
It's always been pretty kind of just, it's niche. It's actually an interesting thing. I mean, obviously it was designed before I started on PoE, and I always thought, I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like, that wands that aren't about just spellcasting. It's, they're about doing attack damage. I thought it was interesting.
Pistolero style. That's what I like about
this,
it. Wands.
Yeah, this might be the largest update to wand attackers that
ever,
we've
like,
ever had
absolutely.
in now like 15 years or something. So
It's just finally, look, I know there's some people in the chat.
W sumie szkoda, że w PoE 2 się tak trochę wypieli, nie? Na atakowanie różdżkami.
It's good stuff.
yeah, there's a few other little gems in there as well, like some fire archer kind of things, and there's some that we want to still extrapolate on, but like wands was the main focus.
Yeah, definitely a lot of love for wands, and pairing in nicely with the added skills from the hands on your back as well.
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Lots of fun synergies there. So we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but shifting gears a little bit, I'm curious about the long-term development of PoE 1. Like, how much is PoE Classic, PoE 1 kind of like sacrosanct to you? Like, how much do you like not want to change it? Or because you've been taking things from PoE 2 and feeding them back into PoE 1, and I'm curious, like, is there points you get to where you're like, well, actually, let's not push it too much closer to PoE 2 in that direction, but keep it its own thing, or maybe like actually let's kind of preserve it as it is to some extent?
I wouldn't want PoE 1 to ossify into something where we feel like we can't change stuff. Like, that would be bad.
Cool.
But
Sounds cool though.
yeah, but it's kind of like okay, the stuff people that we'll probably take back from PoE 2 is more around the sort of QOL areas
Yeah.
of stuff, right? So obviously, people would have been rioting if we hadn't brought async trade.
Generalnie
from,
pytanie
PoE 2,
Ziggiego D w ogóle
but
trwało 10
so
lat
it's been sort of
faktycznie.
nice that we get to do a little bit of, like,
Ale
proving
było
grounds in some cases in
chyba
PoE 2
trochę w
for some of those
naturze
changes
tego,
to see whether or not it'll be okay. the thing we wouldn't wanna ever do to PoE
Co niektórzy
1
się
is
martwią,
make
że
things
PoE
that
1 i
break
PoE 2 się
what
stanie kiedyś
people
tą
like
samą
about it,
grą.
fundamentally. So there's things like the trickiest parts.
Ale w sumie nie, no,
things like
Jonathan
the
mówi
way
tak,
item
nie no,
drops
bierzemy
are and
quality
stuff
of
like
life
that.
z
I don't
dwójki i to w sumie tyle.
That like even though there are things I don't like about that, I don't think we could necessarily change them either. You know, in terms of, you know, so like there's stuff like that you know, you just have to kind of like let it be because they could easily break stuff that people really like.
It kind of raises the question, like, what is it about PoE 1 that does need to be kept, that is kind of what makes it feel like itself, that people do love about it?
I think that it's hard to even define that, quite frankly, because yeah, like it's a mix of things. I mean, look, the thing that PoE 1, I guess, has become known for, as opposed to PoE 2, is just like the combat pace stuff, like where it's just like ultra fast in a lot of ways. But it's not like there was like a goal to make PoE 1 like that either. It just kind of is, and so you wouldn't like it's I wouldn't even want to nerf that about PoE 1, right? Like it just is how that is, right? So that's like really the fundamental difference. But the thing is, I think actually that the community sees more differences between the two games than what we do. Like from our perspective, like, you know, it's like there are I don't even know how to really get into this exactly, but it's like, you know, we're just trying to make a good game. And it's like, it's not like we changed design philosophy or anything like this, right? Like it's the same design philosophy from the same designers.
Yeah.
You know, like going on in both. It's more just a question of like PoE 1 got a bit out of control in certain few aspects, and that's kind of become part of its DNA, and so we can't really change that. And so yeah, so when it comes down to stuff like that we'd take from PoE 2 to PoE 1, well, it's just like all the things that PoE 1 players would like, and none of the things that PoE 1 players wouldn't really. I mean, look, that's ultimately we want to be doing. But yeah, I wouldn't want it to be. I wouldn't want to be in a situation, as I said before, where it's like,
Dzięki, Revi.
okay, we're like PoE 1 is in some kind of perfect state that needs to be preserved forever. Like I don't think it's like
Ale
that.
że jest
We
takie
do need
gadanie
to
trochę o
make changes.
filozofii, to jest takie,
So,
"Ło,
yeah, it's just a question of-
słuchajcie, my po prostu chcemy zrobić dobrą grę. To nie tak, że zmienia się nasza filozofia, cały czas nasza filozofia jest taka sama, chcemy zrobić dobrą grę, pi. No, takie gadanko. Patch notesy. Słuchajcie, po prostu oni przedłużają, bo tam stażysta dopiero kończy patch notesy przepisywać. Gość pisze teraz. Piotrek, zmieniłem ostatnio zdanie w sprawie potencjalnego skipowania kampanii w PoE 2. Przy 4. postaci w tym sezonie przestałem grać w PoE 2, jak myślę, że mam jeszcze raz zrobić tą kampanię. Ja lubię Jonathana. Dopiero zaczął pisać patch noty, no to jeszcze trochę pogadają.
Do anything that's going to compromise what the fans love about it in order to bring in a new set of players at this point. Like I would say that's going to be pretty rare. So it's about making sure that the people who do love the game continue to love the game, and that's why you're probably going to see less in the way of like some grand structural change to all kinds of stuff, because you know, if that change would bring in a bunch of new players. Like, I think making sure you have a good, popular game that people love will inherently bring people in, because people will see that positivity and be like, I'm going to give this game a try. Yeah, less focus on bringing in new, more focus on keeping the existing fan base happy. And whereas obviously with PoE 2 it's a bit of a different story.
Kończę urlop we wtorek, a zaraz liga w PoE. Słuchaj, Pawelus, masz jeszcze parę dni na bycie wyrzuconym z pracy na przykład.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, what that then ended up boiling down to, aside from obviously modernizing graphics, changing the feel of combat,
Thing is,
honestly,
the
the
thing
biggest
is-
change is
eventually.
just balance.
I don't necessarily even think about it, I think, in the same ways. Like, I'm not thinking I'm making changes to bring in new players. I'm thinking, like, what are the things that I want to improve that I think that we can't change
sure.
about PoE 1, because they are somewhat like you know, would be impossible to change just due to the game field changing so much.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, like
Czy da się grać w Exile 1 rangerem z łukiem? Da się, jak najbardziej. Powiedziałbym, że łuki są typem broni, która jest najmniej przyjazna dla nowych graczy w PoE 1. Co jest w sumie odwrotnie do dwójki, bo w dwójce bym powiedział, że łuki są najbardziej przyjazne. W jedynce bym powiedział, że są najmniej przyjazne nowym graczom. Ale no, możesz.
Philosophical discussions occur with respect to, like, outside of talking about dexterity and stuff like that. Honestly, honestly,
that continues.
most of it is just like we're just kind of all get real passionate and just start coming up with real cool ideas of shit that sounds cool that we want to deliver. Like, we're not really having discussions about like, hey, okay, today, Jonathan, let's have a discussion about how many new players we can bring in. Like, we don't do that. It's about like I'm trying to boil down what we are. You know, I'm trying to turn it.
Co jest
into a
najbardziej
podcast that
przyjazne
really is the
nowym
process
graczom?
just like, how can we make cool shit?
Ja bym powiedział, że może jakiś
Cool
mele
that
slammer,
doesn't, like, compromise things in terms
albo
of
może
way, things people will love, things people will enjoy.
summoner jakiś klasyczny.
As I said, making whatever the visions
Może
are of this
jakiś,
infinite
może
quest
jakiś
of the
arcymag w
RPG.
sumie byłby całkiem przyjazny.
So like, you know, it's always interesting trying to be like, how can what
Righteous Fire,
what are the rules?
czyli
What are we
spalanie
gonna change?
przeciwników
What are-
wokół jest w
and
miarę
it's like,
przyjazne.
well, I don't know, we'll just continue to make cool shit. And then that's just generally what we're going to do. And so, I don't know. It's actually a little bit hard to try and decipher that down into like a set of rules or something. You know, it's like, I don't know. If it's cool, if it's fun, if people love it, then it's a win. And
It's good that both games have a bit of room to breathe on their own then, because you can preserve the things that do make PoE1 its DNA, but are objectively like limits to what sort of improvements you can make to the game. But I do have an important question for you both. What bonus should dexterity give you?
Oh, jeez.
O! Ale
Got a few
pytanie
hours.
zarzucił.
See, I know this has
Yeah,
been every time I come over here, I feel like this comes up. It's been going for a while, hasn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Dexterity. What do you get for dexterity?
Rework dexterity, let's
Still
go.
haven't solved
at
that
this
one, huh?
point, I just feel like nothing. Just nothing. It's
Just,
just
Mark
just
mówi,
vibes.
dexterity nie powinno nic dawać.
we rename it to green attribute. It just does nothing.
Sigma.
Organic attribute. Like, yeah, very nice. All right, so still not solved there. So you did mention that Asynchronous has come over to PoE1. It's like it is like there's almost not a
Po
question about
pytaniu o
it.
dexterity, Jonathan jest jak, już zepsuło mu humor to dexterity.
You know, I think it makes. I mean, the fact that
seen
PoE1
this?
got the gold already kind of meant that
Yeah.
it can kind of work. But
Yeah, the gold is a thing though. Like
it is because of the fact that the gold is more scarce in PoE1
Well, more-
and some
more demanding.
more valuable for
More
other things.
used.
Yeah. More
Yeah.
used for other things. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, we had to do a little bit of balance around that.
That's been
Obviously,
tackled
but
then.
also like we do have to go through and assign gold prices to everything in the game. And obviously because PoE1 has a lot more different items and stuff going on, we did have to go through and do all of that. So yeah, it wasn't just like immediate.
Dzięki, Gacek.
We had to consider, well, hold on, people, the gold balance already was kind of like, you know, tight. Like, so
Yeah.
it's in that spot of like, you know, some people are like, I want more. And you do want people wanting more. And so now all of a sudden, now there's this extra thing that's a cost. So we have to obviously account for that. What else was there though? I mean, ultimately, it's mostly just, I guess the console.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you know,
that's
there's
the
like
thing.
the thing. So console previously had a kind of like trade board thing, which is
Yeah.
made pretty much entirely redundant by this. So that
Yeah,
old
this is
trade
just
board
way
is
better.
getting ported over into this system now. So that's
Yeah, we're actually deploying that. Just a fun fact. We're going to make a post about it, but we're deploying that a bit. The removal of that a bit early because we need. There's like a thing where we have to get rid of it before the new system is put in place, due to just like database migration kind of territory things. So yeah, we're doing that like a couple days early. To remove the console trade board, and then a couple of days later, 327 releases. So there'll be a little bit. We'll do a whole post about that, just about what happens to those items. You don't lose your items; they all get put in remove only tabs and all of that stuff. But yeah,
Well, I'll tell you for the PoE1 only players who maybe haven't tried it in PoE2 yet, it's been pretty phenomenal.
Right.
The Asynchronous trade is definitely like a massive quality of life improvement and very pleasing to use. It's
Ja już się wyłączam trochę przy tej gadce.
we have a bunch of UX improvements we still need to make to it. You know, there's
Ale by
it's
teraz
cakes, so, like,
orzeźwiły
I wouldn't
człowieka
want people to
pacznąciki.
think just because it's porting that we're seeing it as perfect. You know, I know people have brought up having save searches.
Yep.
Being able to more rapidly, like, you know, you could control right click your item to automatically search for that item. And like,
we're getting that feature, right? I think they even
That's
maybe.
incredible.
yeah, I'm
If
talking
you're
about
getting
things
that.
that are
Patrz
in
na ty
progress.
machen.
That's actually wild that you're like potentially getting that. That's
Yeah.
It's very. I know everyone
Is
wants.
that going to be in time for PoE1's release?
I'm not sure. I actually haven't folled up on the exact specifics of that, where that's at. But if not, it'll just be mid-league or something. You know what I mean? Like we'll try as soon as it's done on both games, it'll get deployed.
Tak, będzie wbudowany trade.
The reason why
w grę, tak jak w dwójce. Właśnie w ogóle, czemu oni po angielsku gadają, nie po polsku?
Tried that, didn't we?
But it doesn't.
I
You can't see
don't
the item. you only see
remember,
the
but it
name.
might have been that it would require storing the item, which
It
might have
would.
been a
We
pain.
discussed
I think it was
originally
something like that,
allowing
yeah.
that. I think, yeah. I remember discussing that before doing it, and we were like, that would be cool. That would be the thing we want to do.
Probably doesn't store it at the
Yeah.
moment because it's
Imagine
like
there's a tech thing for that,
there's
yeah.
yeah, it's not like, I mean, we could probably do it, but
Okay.
yeah, we probably should.
Potentially on the cards then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
It certainly would be nice. Like I like that feedback as a seller,
Right.
but I certainly love logging in the morning to all the currency and seeing what's sold for what.
But effectively, I think that like trying to improve the kind of price check experience would be
Yeah.
the thing that kind of like the next frontier of like in terms of the in-game UI
Yeah,
trade
like,
searching
what would
sort of
be the
stuff.
next slippery slope to slide down to? Like,
Yeah,
price
as
checking.
long as we don't all of a sudden have like stock market SQ.
O, patch notesy są już podobno,
Like,
patrzcie.
basically, we have to find a way to do that stuff that doesn't get overcomplicated.
Yeah.
So like but then
Co się
that's the
zmieniło?
tricky part, like trying to improve that.
Yeah, I know we've talked about that in the past, like how far you would potentially want to push that.
Arena Aram
I think
Mayhem
like
dodają w
an
końcu.
interesting, like opportunity you guys have to be able to help make that like much more safe,
Nerfy
like,
Diany.
similar to what it is now to price check an item. which is very
Doktor
complex
Mundo,
to
więcej
do,
armor growth.
So, but it's interesting that that's on the cards. That's something you're exploring, pushing further, not just kind of leaving.
But yeah,
as
but
is.
I don't think that's going to come all in one grand moment. Like I think
No,
the-
Kog ma
so-
mniej
so
atak
yeah, like,
speeda.
So this time might be just being able to. I can't remember what the modifier keys you have to hold is, but there's some modifier keys you can do to like effectively search for the item that you've got under your cursor and open up the board and see it.
Nice.
I want to.
Małe te patch notesy, jak na taką ligę.
Right.
Maybe lower the move speed by 5.
Trochę się zawiodłem. Jest rework Doriani Ringa?
Because there's all the questions around, okay, but what if these mods are irrelevant and you don't want to search for them, and like being able to do that
That's
right
the
and
skill.
exactly, it's like all of those things that need that need a little bit of UX around them. That we
Jest
will-
faktycznie.
Yeah,
Health regen
it's
skalujący
something
się
that
z
really
Manregenem,
right,
jak dobrze
UX,
rozumiem.
you could really communicate that skill, like, in a
Right.
nice visual,
W wakansji
physical
zagraj
way.
se Follow Knighta.
Kind of
w międzyczasie.
exciting. Anyway, slightly getting off topic there, but trade is like, it was obviously a big thing, and like for a very long time you guys were rightfully afraid of like what would be the economic implications of this, how would it affect gearing and progression, and like I guess like firstly what has been kind of the use rate of asynchronous trade, like
Dobra, a co to?
using it.
So we were checking on this recently. I think that you got them to look up the numbers on that, and it ended up being around 50-50.
Just under half were using the new system in PoE 2 so far. I expect that to go up over time.
Is this like compared to the existing
Well, it's just compared to people using normal trades.
Są patch notesy
you
do
know, from offers,
3.27
yeah.
faktycznie.
There was a little bit of filtering, like, okay, if it's like with your friend, do we count that or not, and like that kind of thing. Like there was a few things like that we
Dodali Supreme
that we need
Ring.
to sort of look at to see, like, questions around
Naprawili
that. But
jednego
look,
buga.
people who are using it seem to like it. I mean, the buyer experience is obviously way better.
We generally found like I don't know if it's still the case now, but like for a while, like the new trade system, the items were a little bit more expensive. So then there were people like,
Linijki patch notes.
I'll deal with the old one because I want a thing a bit cheaper.
But then the reason why they're more expensive is
Ale
because
się
of the fact it's
napracowali.
easier to buy them, so therefore people are willing to pay more.
And
So
then
you've got this sort of
most
stock
people
market
are like,
effect.
I'm just going to
Yeah,
pay the extra cost because I can't be bothered with
Ex-
doing
exactly.
it. So,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I agree. I'm one of them.
Right,
time
right.
cost of money? Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's important to note as well, and I just want to always verify this. If you are a PoE 2 player and you do have your merchants tabs, you have them in PoE 1 already. You don't need to buy
Nice.
new ones.
good.
They are shared, just to reiterate.
Mark Roberciński przypomina, i ja też w sumie wspomnę, no bo wiem, że jest u mnie trochę osób, które nigdy nawet nie grały jeszcze w jedynkę,
Is it as
zastanawiają się nad zagraniem w jedynkę, a grali i lubią dwójkę. Że większość tabów, większość staszy i tak dalej, które macie w dwójce, będziecie mieć też dostępne w jedynce. Bardzo dużo skinów, staszy i tak dalej jest w obu grach naraz. Jest przypisane po prostu do waszego konta zgrzytających zębatek.
I sort of suspect that at the end of the day, the benefits just outweigh that by much
Yeah.
higher degree, to the point where, like, it honestly, like, just should have just done it.
Merchant stasze tak samo.
the cost that needed to be paid?
But the thing that you were just saying, right, is that like those kind of like mid items are
Yes,
like now
so-
worthless kind of thing, and that is exactly the fear that we had, right? Like that's the concern.
Yes, Jonathan was asking me before this, like
yeah.
what has been my feeling of like
Yeah.
how it's affected my experience, and like I was saying I'm the player who lives in that 5 to 10 C sale range, like
Right.
selling those items for 5 to 10 chaos.
And that is exactly the fear that like introducing fast trade
They
does.
Na czym polega Async Trade? Generalnie, jeśli cię to ominęło, to Asynchronous Trade polega na tym, że wystawiasz sobie taki jakby sklepik, tam sobie na przykład wystawiasz item, dajesz na nim cenę powiedzmy jednego Divina i on się potem wyświetla innym, ktoś inny może kliknąć buy, tepa go do twojego hideoutu i w twoim sklepiku może go sobie kupić.
So like maybe the breadth of the economy will kind of change the dynamics a little bit there. But it's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
Well, like I mean, it's an interesting mixture of phenomena. Like you get the ability to obtain like your starter endgame gear for 5 exalts total. Like you can buy a set of gear basically for 1 exalt each.
Right.
So like that's obviously there's a big impact there. That,
for sure. I mean that's like, that once again that is the fear, right?
It's just the like the standard now. The bar for like the quality of our gear is raised to a certain point. And then I guess that has follow-up questions like, you know, as to how powerful crafting is, how powerful like item drops are when you first get to early endgame, like how difficult the content is. Obviously, there's like there's a whole like follow up here.
I mean, we're going to have to effectively look at what all of that and adjust. And the thing is that effectively by making trade easier, it's meant that the difference between SSF and not is effectively increased. And that kind of thing as well. Like, yeah, I mean, there's some stuff there. But I mean, going back to PoE1, I suppose, like, even though we've got this experience now with PoE2, we're just going to really just have to see what happens in the PoE1 economy. And there, you might have to be some adjustments. But it's going to come down to the individual.
I mean, either way, though, like the amount of people I saw just being like, please just deploy a league. I don't care if there's nothing in it.
As long as the trade system's there, but this is the thing, right? Like it just kind of has to happen. Like it doesn't even matter. Like there can be problems and we'll adjust for them, but we still have to do it anyway.
But of course, like,
so you know, like.
Słuchajcie, każdy chce Chrisa Wilsona z powrotem, ale Chris Wilson nigdy by nie zezwolił na uproszczenia trade'a. Nigdy.
Like even next Q&A, like how it looks like if you start to see things over time.
That would be cool. But yeah, it's crazy to think about, you know, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we're talking about releasing Breach 9 years ago. Now who would have ever thought we'd have gold and asynchronous trade and a currency market and like, holy, we're not
actually
are we the same people
back then to say.
We are, but you know,
I know. I'm not.
It's like
it's a good thing. It is. It's healthy evolution. It's good.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to some kind of mixed questions. Mercenaries was mentioned to be likely returning after rebalance, redesign in some cases. I'm just curious, like.
Czy ktoś chce Chrisa z powrotem? To mnóstwo osób. W sumie ja chcę Chrisa z powrotem. Chris jednak gocik.
The intentions they come
Nawet jak nie zawsze się z nim zgadzałem.
I mean, like with all these things, we have to figure out exactly what. It's very hard to develop. We like to see how players think about it, find the bad things, find the good things, and all that. And it's very hard to develop how it goes into core straight away. Because then you'd be working on that and some things might change and then you end up wasting a bunch of time. It's way easier to let it end, be able to process everything all in one collective and then make the changes and bring it back together. But like,
jak oceniasz obecny stan PoE2 w stosunku do oryginału, w sensie w stosunku do PoE1? Uważam, że PoE2 jest bardzo dobre, ale żyje w cieniu PoE1. No mimo wszystko PoE1 góruje nad dwójką bardzo mocno gameplayowo. Jest głównym konkurentem dwójki. Ale no, kurde, no i tak jestem fanem dwójeczki. I jestem bardzo na dobrą sprawę. Podoba mi się na przykład kierunek zmian w 0.3. Wydaje mi się, że gierka poszła w dobrą stronę w 0.3. Co w ogóle niektórym może się nie podobać, bo bardzo dużo czerpie z jedynki tym razem, dwójka.
Yeah, generally, and this is what you find with a lot of leagues, you get the league, you get a break, and then it comes back 1 or 2 leagues later because it's given us enough time to work out all those kinks and put it in game, you know?
Fundamentally, though, like, so I quite liked Mercenaries, but I also see it as like the sort of thing that I don't know if I want it to always, like, you always have to hire a mercenary.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, it would be mandatory, right?
And that would be and then this is the thing with additive power like that as well. Is like the moment you've got that well, what's the reason why you don't do it?
Yeah.
And that's answering that question. I think is like
So that's
part of
something you're
the
trying to figure out then. Is
yeah. You'd have to have a
So
reason.
if you had a permanent mercenary and then permanent grafts, and
Exactly.
like,
Yeah, it just
will we
keeps-
now
keeps
have to
going.
start watering down the power systems?
Exactly,
and-
right. There's questions
Yeah.
there. But I think there
hard.
should be a way to bring them back, and you just need to find the right way to do it that doesn't involve everyone has a mercenary all the time now, which is fine in a league, but I don't think fine for just the game overall.
Yeah, so I imagine when it comes back, it'll be some sort of more like limited or
Maybe
opportunity
honestly,
cost
it's hard to say.
capacity.
It's hard to say at this point.
Yeah, like I imagine there's like a lot of different ways you could go with that. Whether it's like, they're tied to a skill gem, or they're tied to a certain ascendancy, or something
Right.
like that. But,
O, no jest sporo takich poradniczków, które wypadałoby, żebym zrobił. Na pewno chcę zrobić... Dobra, nie wiem, czy zrobię wszystko z tych, ale z takich rzeczy, które chciałbym, żeby się pojawiły na YouTubie przez następny tydzień, to chciałbym tak. Poradnik, jak zacząć dla nowych graczy. Trochę poradników buildowych, które by się nadawały na start. Poradnik do haste'a, bo haste, myślę, że dużo osób będzie chciało testować haste'a. Jakieś wytłumaczenie nowych mechanik, typu na czym polega nowa mechanika i nowe klasy. Coś jeszcze na pewno. No jakiś poradniczek hacekowy też by się przydał. No. Kurde. Najlepiej to zrobić 1000 poradników, tylko trzeba znaleźć jeszcze na to czas. No i poradnik do Hollow Knighta dokładnie. Jak zrobić 100% completion. Powaga.
anything like that, and I would go so far as to say right now Heist doesn't really have any decision making. How
Cześć,
do you
Trunius.
guys feel about
well,
the state of Heist overall?
It's not good enough. And this is the part
Czekaj, bo widzę, Gulliver, że to 30 razy wrzucasz. Zobaczmy, co to jest.
You know, it would be less trivial with other sequels or to other leagues where we don't necessarily have.
Czekaj. To jest skill, który polega na tym, że przywołujesz armię 30 potencjalnie nawet i Hivebornów jakiś, tak?
All the monsters and everything made like that. So,
Którzy
not to say it's
aplikują
possible,
Britla
but
w ogóle.
it's
Ja
just
PD.
an interesting factor that came up that allowed us to do more here
Ja
than
PD.
we might, you know, if we don't forward think enough or forward plan enough. And I mean, quite QOL change, and you know, we'll make little incremental improvements to them all the time. But yeah, it's one of those ones that needs some love for sure, and it'll come eventually. We cycle through everything eventually. So yeah, I mean, I just when I don't know. You know, you never know. You never know with these things because we assess the battles every time, and we try and pick the best fought ones. And I know there'll be some people who are like, "Heist should be your #1 priority battle," but like, you know.
Czy stary poradnik hacekowy jest zły? Nie, no jest dobry. Pewnie po prostu po pierwszy raz, że wypada raz na jakiś czas wrzucić wersję taką... Bo YouTube, algorytm wie, jak działa. No jednak ludzie wolą obejrzeć nowy niż stary. A dwa, że pewnie jakieś detale się tam pozmieniały, ale fajnie nieistniejące, że zaczynasz na HC. Bardzo fajnie, bo chyba pierwszy raz, tak? Zajebiście. Witaj na cmentarzysku.
Seems worth
It's
salvaging.
definitely rich of character involvement, NPCs, and lore and stuff like that. So it's nice, and it
I named my
sucks.
daughter after one of the characters, so you better save the mechanic, please. Just saying.
Who was that? Was it
Talina.
I was going to I was going to suggest one of the crazy character.
That would be an interesting name for my daughter.
Well, I don't know why you named her that.
Czekaj. Czy Ziggy D nazwał swoją córkę Tulina, na że
Every now and then, of course.
jak postać z
Campaign
Poe?
leveling.
To jest fan
At one
dopiero.
point, I think like part of Exile 2 was kind of like the thing that people were looking for to help save kind of the campaign
Yeah.
experience.
Dobra, w sumie to jest sekta, no bo tak, Ziggy D ma córkę Tulinę,
Nice improvements like
a Zizaran ma chyba córkę Zanę, nie?
earlier acts. Is this something that you're still
To są fani, słuchajcie, to są fani.
the context of you saying that you're like not really beholden to trying to seek out new players now, so it might not be as important as it once was, but
I would argue it's more important
interesting.
because those campaign changes are what helps it keep fresh for people who are replaying the game.
True.
It's actually it's way more important for the existing players. So yeah, it is something I do want to keep doing for sure.
Great.
You know, I liked the adding things like different things happening in different zones, and you know, you can kind of restructure some of the areas a little bit.
Mamo, dlaczego
I like doing all that.
nazwaliście mnie statą
So, yeah,
Divine
I
Orb?
expect to continue seeing things. I don't think we have anything particular in 327 for that, but it will, at some point we'll certainly be doing another set of things, and we'll try and keep that up pretty consistently. If not on a patch by patch basis, at least every year you get a certain set of them and stuff like that, just to help it feel a bit fresh. I also like the things you just get to integrate like some other random league into the campaign somewhere in a few areas. It's like, oh, these areas are being overrun by X or something. It helps it feel a little bit cool, and the world is changing, and it's not just this static thing all of the time. So
yeah, I like the deeper integration of league mechanics into the campaign that you've been doing in PoE 2 and to a lesser extent in PoE 1. It's cool. That's good. It's a good way to introduce that stuff to people over time as well. Did you ever have like a crazy fever dream where you like dreamt having like a league where you have some alternate leveling experience besides the campaign? I know that's never been a
That would be a
waking
bit of a
thought.
tricky...
Znowu pytanie o alternatywne metody levelowania z kampanii. Klasyk.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I'm pretty sure that has been something we've discussed for a very short amount of time, a long time ago, but don't know if we could really...
Yes, I've had some fever dreams about it, but I was just trying to remember what it was, but it couldn't work. I just remember.
Because I know, like, people ask about it every time, and I'm like, I guess I'll ask in a creative way this classic question of like, another way to level for the people.
Jonathan kiedyś powiedział, że tak długo jak żyje, nigdy nie będzie skipowania kampanii.
But then I thought, like a league as a throwaway thing wouldn't be that permanent problem that you have.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. That's why
you don't want to give something that's The problem is they'll like directly compete, and one will clearly be better, and then everyone will just do that.
You can just make it really awful, and then they'll be like, "Oh, you're
great,
right,
yeah, great plan. Let's just make some terrible content.
No one will ask for it ever again."
A to fajny pomysł miał ZGD. Niech dodadzą alternatywny sposób levelowania poza kampanią. Po prostu niech go zrobią, żeby był do dupy i gorszy od kampanii. Wtedy ludzie będą szczęśliwi, że mogą zrobić alternatywnie kampanię. A to dobre.
And we're going to start doing a PoE1. Every single area for Rise of the Abyssal has a guaranteed drop that drops from the chest.
Yeah, it's great.
And I don't know how many people actually know this. I know it's not a secret.
The racers know.
Yeah, and then like I think like for example, the Molten Vault in Act 3 has a guaranteed unique drop for the first time you do an Abyss there.
Yep.
And so you get to do that thing where you get to like, and I want to make sure we're going to do this system in PoE1, by the way, with Keepers of the Flame, where you get like a kind of extra handcrafted guaranteed drop that we pick.
Cool.
For each area in the campaign. So there's a little bit of like, what's it going to be in this area and this area? And so, it'll help ideally if we do our job right, not just like be like, I'm going to skip every single area, get to endgame, and then care about it. Which is still a fine strategy, by the way. Go for it if you want. But I don't know. Maybe you'll second guess some of it now, and you work out which areas you want to do. I like that, but I want to make the active league feel more important in the campaign as well. So as much as we can do to strive towards having that be the case is always fun. I obviously understand though that like when you're insanely an accelerant player.
To jest bardzo ciekawa kwestia. Trochę mam wrażenie, że oni nawiązują też do tego, jak to jest zrobione w dwójce. Że na przykład w dwójce przechodzisz po raz pierwszy jakiegoś zona i masz na przykład gwarantowany lesser Jewelers gdzieś tam w jakimś miejscu. Albo właśnie tak jak powiedział, że potencjalnie w Molten Vaulcie, jeśli wcześniej z Abyssa ci nie wypadł nigdy unikat, to tam będziesz miał gwarantowany pierwszy unikat z Abyssa. I w sumie jedynka w jakimś stopniu już to robi. Powiedzmy na przykład, że pierwsza wizyta w Northern Forest masz gwarantowany rytuał przykładowo. I to jest fajne jest. To można, nawet sam ten rytuał pokazuje, że można to zrobić w fajny sposób.
Even a leak. Imagine you came back and it's like, okay, there's some balance changes, but like, what else is going on, So, like, even we understand that you must have the league in order for the campaign to not just feel the same every single time. So.
Yeah, true. Yeah. And I think like the ones that have had less impact on the campaign have certainly been a little bit less exciting
Right.
for that
sure.
initial leveling experience.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's
Legions
just the same as
Allegano.
before, except kind of honestly maybe worse. You know, and then you really want to feel like the world is different. Something's going on. Something you're engaging with you didn't before, and you know.
Anyway, I'm a campaign enjoyer. Sorry, I like it, but I got to rep the diverse opinions out there for that one. The
Oh, for sure. It's commonly brought up. It's always worth discussing.
absolutely.
100%.
It's a classic.
We
question.
compromise on gold. We compromise on trade. You know, it's always good for people to ask what else we
Yeah, I like to
and
check
how
in
we
and see where you guys have shifted.
yeah see where we are and what we, you know, like nothing's set in stone forever. Maybe this one is, but we'll see.
Maybe next Q&A. We'll see. So a question that I saw was interesting
Co
was
to za minę
how
robił
does GG
Jonathan?
track bugs? What's the
Na
best
samą
way to
sugestię,
report them?
że
And
mogliby
kind of
dodać
like,
alternatywny
the
leveling.
example was like they had a specific transfigured skill gem as like an ice golem that doesn't work with support gems and hasn't since launched. So
Right.
just kind of like stuff getting kind of lost in the woodwork. Like,
Unfortunately, one of the realities of live service development is, okay, so if we're going to make a league by a certain deadline,
Jest twoja opinia o
like,
Jonathanie? Ja lubię Jonathana.
every time we're looking
Mi się
at each
wydaje,
issue
że
and being like,
jedyny
okay,
problem taki
this
Jonathana
is
realnie
so
to jest
important
taki,
to
że
get this league
on
finished.
jest za bardzo
It's really,
emocjonalny
really hard
i
to
taki
prioritize
defensywny,
in some cases. Like, they
więc
should
czasami
get
dziwnie
attention
wychodzi w
eventually, but
rozmowach, ale generalnie się wydaje łebski
I have
i
no idea how
taki,
many open issues there are in our bug tracker.
że zazwyczaj zgadzam się z jego przemyśleniami.
Uh,
Nie zawsze, ale bardzo często.
look at the games.
we have this thing where it's like, okay,
Tak, Mark
here's
to
something
traktuje
that might affect
mniej...
0.1% of players and
Wydaje mi się, że po nim najbardziej tak widać, że on to traktuje jako jego dziecko trochę, tą grę i po prostu
so
się trochę zamyka, jak słyszy krytykę. Ale dobrze, że zawsze jest właśnie w duecie z Markiem, gdzie Mark wtedy przyjmuje pałeczkę.
Something as simple as like this skill doesn't get affected by support gems could take 5 seconds and hasn't really been observed or prioritized. That is an option. Or it's going to take 5 weeks to implement some giant refactor, and
Right.
honestly, we should have just deleted the skill and added 15 others. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's honestly kind of hard to know, and it's easy to go look at that single thing after this because you happen to bring it up and like, we'll see what the problem really is. But yeah, often sometimes the simplest things boil down to like, oh, we have to refactor this and about how damage is dealt and how, you know, something with conversion and dexterity and, you know, not dexterity, and it boils down to this like giant refactor of how all this code works, and then it's like, now we can do this thing. Okay, what else did it get us? No, just kind of just that.
and you get issues stuck in this hell effectively of like, you know, someone like read it, they put it in the issue tracker, someone looked into it. they
Spóźniłem
realized
się
there was
przez żonę.
some
Czy coś
annoying
ważnego
detail
cię
of it
ominęło?
that
Zależy, czy byłeś na
requires some
początku, Jay.
larger change.
Jak cię
And
nie
someone's
było,
like, oh, well, you know, we don't have time for
to
that,
na
we'll
pewno
do
będę
the
robił
whole thing,
podsumowanie na
and then
YouTube'a, będzie
like,
dzisiaj,
hell
to znaczy
with
jutro,
like
jutro będzie.
conversion, this, like, you know, when we get time thing, and then it just kind of dies, and that's kind of an unfortunate situation that
I
can
have
happen.
several thousand assigned to me in a version called unscheduled.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
You know, like one day there used to be this optimism of like one day I'll get there, and then I've accepted defeat.
But I mean, ultimately, obviously, we prioritize things based on how much the community cares about it.
So yeah,
So if people do care a lot about it, then yeah, obviously we'll get some attention.
So to the point of the question, then, like, what can players do from
Tak,
their
Safiro.
perspective for something that they think is important? but isn't
Generally,
missing?
most of the media is like our community team has a generally good eye on things that are more at the larger issues that get brought up. They do get noted down. They do generally get forwarded to us or the relevant people. For the fine detail bug reports, our QA team, it is part of their routine to go through the bug reports forums, and
The forum seems to be the most
Yeah.
Yes.
pertinent place. for
that
this
is
sort of thing, yeah.
part of the day-to-day routine of the QA team. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you
Ale i
want
tak w żadnej grze nie widziałem tyle bugów,
like that you think maybe has been
co w Hollow Knightie ostatnio i w Silksongu.
the bug report forum
The
is-
slash bug in
Powaga.
comes with like a thing, but it's real. That's more about like terrain issues or like something that's like, oh, what the heck, this generated weird, or like what the heck is this
Powaga.
weird thing here. It does give us a like recreate of the level, so we can come in and then like figure it out. But like if slash bug going a skill is broken or like my skill can't be supported, those two things are not correlated. So that's like if it's like broken and like if the level is bad or there's monsters in the level or something glitching out, slash bug is a good way, and then there's a brief description. If you want to like report a skill or something like that, it's better on the forums for sure.
Okay. A couple popular requests. One was dual stash tab, and also kind of tangential to that was like more affinities. Is this
You
something you
said
guys...
dual stash tab. I thought you meant as in two stash. I was like,
Ej, a co jeśli oni będą ten podcast prowadzić do 31 października i patch notesy dostaniemy za tydzień?
Yeah, we wanted it to always be that like rollable equipment, things with modifiers don't get specific stash tabs. Like that's the stuff you have to deal with. That's the item management should be in that. But then I understand technically compromised on flasks and you know bits and pieces, and it's like a little bit of a gray area. But like we so far have drawn the line kind of as just like. I mean, we've literally listed the rest of the stash tabs, and aside from adding new leagues and a whole bunch of new currency items here and there and stuff like that, it's been like, I don't know, I think that might be it. Like, until we add new stuff that requires new affinities, like maybe something comes with this league. I think this league has a locker, so whatever. But then it's like, yeah, I don't know if we will ever really add them for the equipment. I don't want it to be that you literally can just control click. Well, people have their dump tabs and different methodologies of doing that stuff, but I don't want everything to just auto-sort. People may disagree with me, and fair enough, you can. But that is ultimately how we want it to be, where it's like there is at least some items you're kind of looking at, like especially with mods. Like obviously with the currency, you know by the icon what it is. With an armor, you want to look at it, see what the mods are, and then make a decision. And sure, a lot of people put it in a tab and then look at it later and make the decision. And I understand with the trade system before, what actually people were doing is just dumping it, and then if they get spammed.
Rolowanie tier 17 to zabawa. Wiesz co? Wsadzanie pitola pomiędzy framugę drzwi i zamykanie drzwi to też dla kogoś może być zabawa, ale wydaje mi się, że dla przeciętnego człowieka no nie będzie to zabawa najlepsza.
You know what I mean? Like, and you could argue, well, I think control again and all the sort, but you know, I think we kind of drew the line at equipment. And again, I suspect a lot of people are gonna be like, well, you should change that, and I'll be like, well, I don't want to, and you know, we'll be at a disagreement there. And again, I'm all about having a healthy disagreement. I don't mind. So that might just be where it is, and I don't know. We can reevaluate in a couple Q&As from now. You know what I mean?
I think on the affinities tab, on the affinities side of things, chat's mentioning that there's like a few in Piri 1 that are kind of missing, maybe like incubators and stuff.
Oh no, they are missing. It is our intention to add this.
Okay, yeah.
For that, more like fungibles and stuff like that, like non-modifier stuff. That it is an intention to add that. Yes, 100%.
Cool, nice. Good to know. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So that's probably the ones.
I mean, we did that in PoE too. We were always like, oh, we've got to release the stash tab, and then we did the whole like, wait, we can just add affinities without the tab. We can add the tab later if we want to. So we still need to go through.
Dostałeś reklamę Nintendo. Cóż, teraz będzie dobry moment, żeby subskrybować na Twitchu, bo będą cały czas streamy 16-godzinne z PoE od 31 i nie będzie wtedy reklam. Na przykład taką decyzję podjął Czatis. Dziękuję Ci, Czatis, za premika. Bardzo mi miło.
Seems like it's pretty painful to farm for people that enjoy that, but you know, can only do it for a brief stretch. And Octavian was saying there was something about that happening.
I think we did do something with that, and
yeah,
it came up when we initially were speccing all the QOL changes and like things that are just like easy wins and improvements.
Yeah,
it came up. I just don't have 100% memory recall on if we decided to do it like now. It might actually just be in the patch notes. I don't know. There's like 50-50. It might just be like already. Like, I think what we do is drop less of them, get rid of some of the bad ones, and drop more of the good ones, but like fewer overall stacks. You know, higher more in the stacks and less of all the pitter-patter that you end up kind of filtering out anyway. So hopefully we did that, and then it's in. If we haven't, then it's very clearly on the radar and will come soon.
Cool. Nice. I like this. So you had this thing. It was like, what? We need 10 quality of life improvements for each update, right? It's like bare minimum.
Yeah.
I like this. It's been paying off. I think it's you get those nice little.
Fajny w ogóle koncept, nie? Że się muszą wymyślić po prostu co najmniej ileś quality of life zmian na każdy sezon. To faktycznie się nastakowało. Jakbyś, mam wrażenie, że jakby taki przeciętny gracz jedynki miał się teraz cofnąć 10 lig do tyłu, to by plusy w brodę bardzo.
This obviously doesn't need to be this way.
It's all the little things that erode your enjoyment over time.
Yeah. And honestly, there's a little bit of a time factor to it. It's like the longer it's been in, the more like it's like, okay, at this point, come on now. We've added some other like friction and something in some other way here. We can take away from some of it over here. You know, you don't want it to become a spreadsheet, for sure. But at the end of the day, you don't want it to just become. As we add more and more features, more and more content, it's going to. Everything will have their little thing. It's going to become growingly more annoying over time. So it's important as you add some things that require, you know, manual intervention, you start removing some of the other ones and streamlining them. And so it's because the game is so replayed for so long. It's really, really, really important at this point that we are addressing as many things as we can per league to make sure that, you know, you don't just get a build up of, you know, annoyance.
Kiedy wleci pająk z dropa? Generalnie on już jest do zdobycia, ale może być jakiś zlagowany. Nie wiem, czy tam jakiś problem niektórzy mieli początkowo.
The Spectre thing and, you know, the heist thing. There's so many that are just like, I mean, they're not, are they QOL? Yeah, kind of. I mean, they do improve quality of life to some regard, but it's honestly kind of balance as well. It's just like, you know, it doesn't need to be this way anymore, so let's just change it. But yeah, I don't know. We try and think of as many as possible. I love my bingo cards. I don't think I've had too many recently, so feel free to put some more bingo cards through. I love the ideas.
Bingo cards
they can be,
going.
look, if you don't have 20, it doesn't have to be a 5x5 grid. You can make a 2x2 bingo card. It can, if you can't think of more than 4 things, or just have 4. If you only have one thing, just a single cell bingo card. It's also fine.
Stretching the definition a little bit.
You know, we do
Easy
take a
bingo.
moment to sit down and go like, what do we want to fix? We crowdsource. We go to our QA. We talk to other designers here who play and stuff, and we're just like, what annoys you the most? And then we try and come up with something. So yeah,
It's good.
I don't know. It's actually quite a fun process, and yeah, we go. I think this time around
Mark Roberciński mówi, żeby przekazywać feedback w formie nie ogromnych esejów na Reddicie, tylko prosty feedback. Bingo na przykład.
That's for the chat today. I look forward to playing some more.
O, zbliża się koniec?
We'll see you fine, folks, in 3:27.
Yeah, excellent.
Oh, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks again, and
Hopefully you guys.
Awesome!
See you later, folks.
Yeah.
Czy będą od razu patch notesy? Drodzy Państwo, no i patrzcie, są patch notesy. Co my tu mamy? Secrets of the Atlas. A, daliście się zbejtować, to stare patch notesy. Ale śmieszne. Ale kogoś nabrałem. Jeszcze nie ma, słuchajcie. Ale dobrze. Ja wyłączę już stream YouTube'owy. Generalnie, jeśli ktoś faktycznie oglądał cały ten czas na YouTubie, to bardzo dziękuję. Nadal osobom YouTube'owym chciałbym powiedzieć, że możecie wydropić sobie skina na Twitchu, twitch.tv/Piotr Maciejczak na przykład u mnie, bo jest jeszcze pająk do wydropienia. A tak poza tym, co wam mogę powiedzieć? Na YouTubie oczywiście będzie podsumowanie wszystkiego, co tutaj było powiedziane i co się działo w samym reveal trailerze, nie wiem, tej pogadance, w samym revealu. No i oczywiście będzie dużo filmów różnych. Generalnie, że ktoś nie subskrybuje mojego YouTube'a, a ogląda na Twitchu, to polecam, bo bardzo dużo kontentu z PoE niedługo będzie. Dobra. Żegnam YouTube'owych widzów.